So hello everyone. Once again, welcome to the fourth session of Commodity Week 2026. As many of you would have joined the previous sessions, in which the first session was on maize, then we moved on to wheat, then rice. So predominantly we concluded with all the three key grains or cereal commodities. Today we are shifting our focus on another very important commodity basket, that is vegetable oils. And in vegetable oil, I would say queen of the basket is for sure soyabean. We also know that this is the season where the crop in southern hemisphere is ripe to be harvested. And this is the pertinent time to talk about soyabean. And we will also try to ensure that we touch upon the intricacies of soyabean, not just as oil, not just as a meal, but also the broad implication which are around it to be used as a biofuel. Even those talks have been going on for a pretty long time. And we are having an awesome panel today to talk about various aspects of not just soyabean, but also touching across the vegetable oil sector. We'll start our session and discussion with Mr. Alok Bhargava, who is a director at Praramb Agri. We'll move to Dr.Suresh Motwani. We'll have Mr. Sanjeev Asthana, who is CEO of Patanjali Food. We'll have Mr. Sumit Gupta, CEO Asia of WASEDA Global Private Limited. Then Mr. Sudeep Singh, Mr. Binod, Anand, Amrendra, Mishra. All are very pertinent voices. So from government, we are having someone who represent or sit in the committee formulated to ensure farmers are having good remuneration for their efforts. The committee created by the Prime Minister himself, Mr. Binod Anand, will be joining us. As I said, Mr. Amrendra Mishra, he is a Managing Director and Country Manager India for ADM. So we are having a pretty decent mix of people who are working at the grassroots level, like Dr.Suresh, people who are very strong name when it comes to the trade, that is Mr. Alok Bhargava, Mr. Sumit Gupta. Then we are having people representing the corporations, Indian corporation like Patanjali by Mr. Sanjeev, and then Amrendra, who would be representing the multinational face of the edible oil or soybean industry. Now, let me also guide you that we will be having, other than today, two more sessions lined up. Chickpeas and pulses tomorrow, that is 9th of January. And then we'll conclude the commodity week by the last session, which is of sugar. I've already explained you that we already had three excellent sessions. Now let's go and discuss a little bit about the supply, demand, and overall initial narrative, which I wanted to focus on as we talk about soyabean. So if you see that soyabean is definitely part of the big basket, which is known as edible oil basket. And if you see global production of edible oil is estimated to be roughly between 255 to 260 million metric ton in 2025, primarily led by palm oil, which is 81 million metric tons, followed by soyabean. So if you see that from the seeds, we are having soyabean, which is having the largest share, followed by rapeseed or canola oil, 36 million metric ton, and sunflower oil, which is 24 million metric ton. But that demand is not exactly what the world needs. The normative demand, which is that the basic requirement to live a healthy life, comes out to be close to 280 to 290 million metric ton. And that reflects that still there is a gap in our productivity as well as what the world needs. And this is also where we have to ensure that the edible oils are economical for the majority part of the world. And we have seen many parts of the world, they cannot afford vegetable oils. And going forward, if we are able to reduce the cost of production, distribution, and the retailing, we could be able to even cater to those people. Now, if you see over the past 6 decades, the yields have also improved. So there is a one positive sign that our yields have improved from roughly 0.6 tons of oil per hectare in 1960s to close to 1.5 tons per hectare today. And this is led predominantly by the palm oil. So we have seen that there has been substantial increase in both the acreage as well as the productivity of palm fruits and hence the palm oil itself. On the soya side also, in some of the markets, typically Western Hemisphere, which has been using genetically modified seeds, their productivity has increased substantially. In fact, we have seen 2 to 3-fold increase in those markets, while one of the large producers like India, our yields and productivity has remained pretty low, and we are still pretty below the benchmark of 1 ton per hectare scenario. In fact, we are already seeing a little bit of decay in that. We'll talk about that when we talk about Indian supply and demand numbers. So looking ahead, the global normative demand would be close to 330 million metric ton, and the actual demand we would be looking at would be in tune of something around close to 305 to 310 million metric ton by 2035. So we would definitely need more oil. So if you see that currently the oilseed and oil palm occupy approximately 270, 280 million hectares of land globally, with soybean at 131, rapeseed at 40 million hectares, sunflower at 28 million hectares, groundnut and others all contribute to 50 million hectares, and oil palm is 22 million hectares. And this is where actually what I was talking about, like, increase in oil palm cultivation leads to enhanced yield because per hectare conversion of oil is higher when it comes to oil palm. But soybean has to catch up because it is one of very important protein source, not just oil. So going forward, we need to cultivate more than 15% additional area to take care of our upcoming demand, which is, I would say, not a possibility as of now because of the constraint of land which we are having. Hence, going forward, it is very important that we focus more on productivity. That will become an important part. Now, as basic overview, let's go deep into some numbers. So when we talk about the global supply and demand, so if you see that consistently the carry in soybean has been increasing. And that is also one of the reasons where you are seeing the severe pressure on the prices today. In 2024-25, we had carry of close to 116.6 million metric tons. And in 2025-26, by end of the marketing year, we are looking at 125.6 million metric ton as a possible ending stock. Sorry, 136.6 million metric ton as an ending stock. We start this year at 125.6 million metric tons. Now, even the productivity, if you see that, there has been consistent increase in production of soybean. So while the acreage increase has not happened too much, it's a hardly 1.2% increase in acreage, but we are seeing the production has increased. And again, we have to congratulate the Western Hemisphere, which has led the charge. Countries like US and Brazil, they have shown remarkable improvement in the productivity. So in 2022-23, when we used to have production of close to 370 million metric ton, now we have reached to the number of 429 million metric ton. Global trade is also is becoming robust from 170 million metric ton in 22-23. Today, we are looking at 183.5 million metric ton in 2024-25 and is projected to be 187.5 million metric ton in 2025-26. So you see that for 25-26, we are looking at a pretty decent supply side, which is 554.6 million metric ton. Consumption, while it has improved substantially from 2022 till 2024-25, this year we are not seeing too much rise in the consumption for very simple reason. We are seeing that there is also in some key markets where the meal is very important. Soya meal is important. Also having a play of the corn-based DDGS. So if you see that the consumption is gonna be just increasing close to a 1% only. And when it comes to the ending stock, as I was telling you, will be having a pretty decent scenario with 136.6 million metric ton as a overall ending stock. Now, when we look at, as I was talking you, the meal, which is very important and very critical, right? This is where we are seeing that carry of close to 17.9 million metric ton as we start this year. Production 287.7 million metric ton. Global trade, which is a little bit, I'm saying that again flattened in 2025-26 to 82.2 million metric ton, while it was 81.4 million metric ton in 2024 and 25 marketing year. Supply robust 305 million metric ton, consumption 282.5 million metric ton, and ending stock of 23.1 million metric ton. Oil, that's another very important area. So as you know that soybean is crushed and then you are having a meal and oil as a two product. And there is always a question mark whether oil is more important or the meal is more important. But eventually, for a better economics of supply, it is always a mix of both. So the carry we are looking at is roughly 6 million metric ton, production of 72.9 million metric ton. We are looking at global trade of 14.1 million metric ton and supply of 78.9 million metric ton and consumption 72.0 million metric ton. Now, enhancement or improvement in consumption is for very simple reason is that in the past, the palm oil used to have a big spread. It used to be far cheaper than soybean oil. And suddenly we are finding that that spread is reducing. And once that spread reduced, then actually there is a little bit shift towards soybean or sunflower oil. And we see that this year, even in India, we are looking at there is a possibility of a better or improved import of soybean oil in comparison to palm oil. Looking at some of the production numbers across the globe, so Brazil has led. Last year also they had a great crop, 2024-25, they closed with 158. This year, in fact, we are looking at substantial improvement and crop going to the level of 177 million metric ton. And one of the reasons is that actually enhanced or increased or improved demand from China. So China has been a big buyer of Brazilian soybean. And this is also reflected in their improved number of close to 7% increase in their export numbers, also 208 million metric ton. United States, the production is looking a little bit low because the farmer in 2024-25, they have not made very good amount of money and the soybean price has always been in stress. So 2024-25 number was 120 million metric ton, and in 2025-26 we are looking at 116.8 million metric ton production coming from United States. Similarly, you see that a dip in the export from United States because again China has hardly bought anything from United States so far. But now past 1 month we have seen that enhanced activity where because of I would say that the ceasefire in trade war between China and US. China has committed to purchase while both parties have a different number to share, or China says no number and US is giving number that how much China has committed. In 2017-18 also, we have seen similar thing happening in previous Trump administration where China has committed some numbers, but they have never fulfilled that. But we have seen that of late recently, like, in last week, there is a movement where 10 million metric tons worth of purchase by Chinese of US soybean has been talked about or is getting, I would say, in the final stage of execution. So again, but the total numbers would be far less from China to US imports. So we are looking at overall export of roughly 42 million metric tons from United States. Argentina, again, it's I would say that this year, even though their crop was a little bit higher than last year, their export increased for very simple reason that actually, like, Argentina, they played a very important role by giving waivers when actually or incentives for exports. And Argentina has actually, like, made a good breach in Middle East markets. So specifically, if you see that Saudi Arabia, suddenly Argentina has become the largest exporter to Saudi Arabia. So these type of, I would say that geopolitical, geoeconomics, as well as, I would say, trade incentive enabled support from Argentina has ensured that actually, like, they had a decent export in 24-25. And even going in 2025-26, we see roughly 20% increase in export coming out from Argentina, while their crop might not be that great. But as the export number as a percentage of overall production is not that high, Argentina should be able to have a decent export technique, like moving forward. China, another big producer, they do produce roughly 19.6 million metric ton in 2024-25. And in 25-26, we see it is further increasing to 20 million metric ton. And in fact, you'll be surprised that 10 years back, China was hardly at 10.8 to 11 million metric tons. even though they import so much, in fact, China import close to 100 million metric ton of soyabean, still their own productivity and production has increased. So it is like saying that even though their production is increasing, their demand has been like, become increasing in a big manner. And as we know that China depend a lot on meat, and soya meal plays a very important role. And hence we are seeing that China still remain one of the dominant player when it comes to the global trade, specifically imports. India, we are looking at 12.9 million metric tons in 24-25. In 25-26, we see a serious dip. And the dip is one of the reason is that farmers were not able to make decent realization of their crop last year. And hence they have shifted the acreage to other crops, including the crops like maize. And this is where we have seen that there would be a dip in production of soybean in 2025-26, coming to something around 10 million metric tons of production in 25-26. Soybean has become a big issue actually in India, because irrespective of whatever the government policies are, they have also tried to intervene by buying soybean in Maharashtra, and still, like, you were not able to see that farmers have got a good realization. So the pricing of soybean, irrespective of like, whatever is the MSP is, they are all getting like, close to roughly 50 to 20% lower realization than the MSP. And that is not very attractive way. At the same time, because India's productivity is one of the lowest in the world, we are close to like, 830 tons per hectare, sort of like, quintals per kg, sorry, 830 kgs per hectare type of like, our realization. So it is not making economic sense for farmer to grow more soybean. So there is a challenge. Similarly, Paraguay, Canada, and Ukraine, they have all been like, having, I would say that, especially like, in Black Sea, Ukraine, we are seeing a dip, while in Canada, again, we are seeing a little bit of dip, and Paraguay would be producing more. They are also catching up based on their South American neighbors or friend. And in fact, we'll see that Paraguay's export in 2025-26 to increase by as high as 50%. Now coming back home to India. So if you see in India, like, we had pretty decent carry in 24-25, and that carry has been unfortunately with the farmers. Now that has impacted market very negatively, because farmers, not just at a lower realization, they were not able to sell their produce. And hence we see that this year there was a substantial decrease in the production because of lower acreage, and also like, not too much of investment going in the soybean farms, leading to reduction in yield as well. So we are looking at 9.92 million metric ton of production when it comes to India. We had a good carry. So if you see supply side, we are 13.68 million metric ton, and consumption will be at 11.75 million metric ton. And this consumption can even go further for very simple reason that the crushing margins are going to be tested exceptionally. The lower cost of soya meal, as well as like, that the oil output coming from Indian soya crop is not as efficient as other part of the world. So it would be cheaper for a lot of importers to import crude soybean oil and convert it into refined soybean oil rather than do the crushing in India. So we are having a serious soybean challenge in our hand when it comes to India. And as I said, like, because of lower production, our ending stock will be as good or as bad as 2023-24, unlike in 24-25, when we had nearly 3 million metric tons as a carry. Edible oil, again, we are seeing that there was a dip in imports in 24-25. But again, we would see that this year there would be increase of close to 1 million metric tons when it comes to edible oil import from last year, which was 15.5 million metric ton. Overall, we have seen that the consumption remaining, I would say, flat. And we'll be having the consumption or usage equivalent to 28.2 million metric ton, which is similar to 28.3 million metric ton in 2024-25 oil cycle. The $1 million question is that out of the 16.5 million metric ton, how much of that import is palm, how much of that is soya, and how much of that is sunflower? We see that there could be a substantial increase in import of soybean oil in the year 2025-26. And with that, I would like to end my presentation on initial demand and supply. And I also take this opportunity of welcoming our guest. And the first, I would like to invite Mr. Alok Bhargava ji. He is a chartered accountant and a seasoned international agri-commodity trader with 30 years of experience across Africa, Russia, and Middle East. He's based out of Dubai and he founded Praramb Agri Trading DMCC, which specializes in sourcing and trading of oilseed and pulses. Alokji has a unique perspective of South-South trade flows, having spent decades on ground in Tanzania and various other African origins. He's an expert in trade and logistics of global soya and has a deep understanding of why certain origins, particularly in Africa, are outperforming traditional giant, including those in Brazil and the US. Thank you, Alokji. Pleasure to see you, sir.
Yeah. Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone.
Yeah.
Mm,
So, Alokji,
जी,
straight to you, sir.
yeah.
How do you see overall soya scenario today? बहुत ज्यादा मंदी हो
Uh,
चुकी है.
बहुत ज्यादा मंदी हो चुकी है, बात सही है. But the only good thing which we have seen is now, in the last 2 weeks, India has come into the market quite aggressively for import of soya beans. So at least we are seeing that, at least Indians are looking to buy. Last year they didn't buy too much from Africa, especially. But this year, definitely they are trying to go for it. And the price, as far as the prices are concerned, even the prices, the lowest I heard was around 490, 95, and the highest now it is 530, 535. So there's a substantial demand as well as the price increase we have seen in the Indian market. So that's what it's happening as far as India market is concerned. China, as they have already they are trying to shift everything from US to Brazil and other markets. And not only that, I was just there was a CISME conference, and I was just hearing that this China Chamber of Commerce, they were telling that now the government is trying to increase the soya production in China itself and giving, less priority to the other crops so that their reliance on import from US or whatever country becomes less. So the government is, actively actively pushing the farmers there to go for more and more and more and soya. So as you said, even in your speech, they have increased from 10 to 20 already. So now they are trying to probably increase from 20 to any 25, 30, something like that. So they are after soya now.
No, so Alokji, very interestingly, what China has done recently is that they've allowed GMO because
They have allowed GMO.
they've seen that actually, like, for over so many years when they've been importing GMO seed from Brazil and US,
Mm,
their
mm.
people have not become monsters, right? There are no zombies on street of China, right?
That's true.
So they have understood one thing, that actually if we can import GMO, then why can't we grow it? And I think it's a logical
Yeah,
step for a country which is importing 100 million metric ton. Now, I would like
yeah.
to understand from you for talking a little bit more on China, right? So, how do you
Mm,
see this whole interplay of China with respect to US, Brazil? Do you see any shift there? Also, are the African origin getting premium? Because, like, non-GMO is seen to be a premium product, right? When we compare to the GMO one, is market other than India, because we have no option, you have to only import non-GMO. But do you think that
mm.
non-GMO premium still existing and going strong?
Oh, yes, definitely. China, they are prepared to pay. If I give you example, China even today, if you are giving them an option of Ethiopia or the Tanzania one, they have allowed Benin, they have allowed Ethiopia, they have allowed Tanzania. These three they have allowed, and the Togo is under consideration. They've allowed it, but it's not on the paper yet. So the four origin they've already allowed, and it's completely non-GMO. So that is, and always non-GMO is a premium, whether it is to Pakistan, whether it is to China, or whether it is to India, buy only non-GMO. So we can't say there is a premium there, but the market goes like this. And even if you see previously, like Benin, if Benin, for example, today has got 600,000 or 700,000 crop, then they have allowed just recently the export, and you will see 500,000 plus will go to China. It will not go to India because they will pay higher than India to get non-GMO as much as possible. Unfortunately, Malawi didn't export last year, and this year the prices was too high. It was 500 plus X warehouse in Malawi, so it didn't work out. Malawi and Mozambique area. Mozambique they have not allowed yet. But if you look at this Benin cargo, probably they have already started buying. February shipments they have already started buying, and they are paying good premium always. But so non-GMO will always command a premium in the market even if China government thinks it's the same, but they will pay premium. They have a niche market for non-GMOs.
No, I
And
totally agree.
India,
Alok
you
ji.
are over. Yeah,
No, I totally agree with you because see, actually, there is a internationally, I would say, set it principle that if something you want to consume directly, whether in form of tofu
directly.
or whether in form of soya milk and all that, you will always
Mm,
look at the non on GMO. And in some of like, I would say high value poultry industry also, they would like to go for
mm.
non-GMO because then it gives like, because definitely if animal eats something different, actually they will taste different. And it's not just about, I
Yes.
would safety issue, but I'm saying
Mm.
culinary, like, non-GMO chicken tastes different than a GMO chicken. Now, this is where, do you see, like, I've seen in some numbers for showing me that whether it's Ethiopia or Tanzania and
Yeah.
like, these orange, they've also started growing more soybean and using more investment in at the farm gate level so that they increase production. Do you see those trends happening?
Yeah, there are two reasons for that. One is the demand, but the demand, in demand in Africa goes like this. If a selling price, the demand value, if it is more than $500, then only Africa comes into play and supply the material. Otherwise, they consume themselves. They don't like in Nigeria. If you look, if tomorrow's the market becomes 450 levels or 470 levels, there are very little chances of India or China or anybody getting material from Nigeria. So there has to be one level, where the farmers think that if the local exporters, local manufacturers are not paying that money, then only the export will start. And for, the exports are good because China is outright. China is not allowed it. Nigeria still or soybeans in China still. It's only the Benin which has got the privilege to do that. Once they allow, you will definitely see the shift of uh, shipment from India to China, 100%. So the people are increasing soybeans. Plus, the first reason there is a global demand of non-GMO seeds from China, India, or wherever, Southeast Asia. And secondly, because they have their own factories. There are even in Nigeria, I know at least 7 or 8 new factories are coming with a good capacity. So for the soya processing, for the soya meal and soya oil. So even other countries, it's the same position. In Benin, when the India stopped organic soya, they reduced the organic soya, so the Togo got benefit of that. So it's Africa. It's only they are increasing their production to maintain export. Plus, their own capacity is increasing day by day.
So
If you
you
look, if Nigeria is producing 1.4, 1.5, then 1.1 is consumed there and there only. It's only the surplus which is being exported.
Right. So, sir, that also brings me to a very pertinent question, like, infrastructure, right?
Mm.
So, some of these countries, when they start producing more, right? And it is,
Mm.
we have seen across the line, specifically, like, when I see East Africa, suddenly their production of rice has increased. So,
Yes.
and we are seeing now soybean also, like, the push for that. Even in pulses, actually, like, when the acreage reduces, then only there
Mm.
is a drop in the production, but overall productivity is increasing in Africa, even in pulses. Now, do you
Even
think
in
like,
Pulse.
that African infrastructure is gearing, whether it is a physical or digital infrastructure, gearing up, right, to look at Africa as now more export oriented, like, philosophy rather than being a predominantly import dependent continent? We have seen that shift from being like,
Mm.
a huge importer to slowly a shift where like, self-sufficiency and in some commodities even becoming export. Indian pulses depend on African pulses, like,
Yeah.
our
Yeah.
protein security also depends on Africa. So do you
On
think that
Africa.
logistically also there are improvements happening in Africa?
Yeah, definitely, definitely, because they have to gear up whatever production they are increasing. Even in Tanzania, things are improving. Digitalization is always there in Africa. They are going hand to hand with India because most of the MNC or the bigger companies, they experiment with Africa first and then they, roll out in the world. So they always get the digital technology first in the world, then the other, probably other get to know. So they are increasing it. Infrastructure is definitely improving, and we have seen the shipments happening, whether it is for soya, whether it is for sesame, or whether it is for tuar. The tuar. If you look, the if the season is for the 3 month, they are finishing the shipment in 5.5 months. Yes, some problems are always there, like congestion and everything, but they are still working on that. Tanzania now, the port is managed by DP World, so they are taking help of bigger people in the market, and they are improving. Definitely, they are improving the infrastructure and everything. So we can see a shift. And secondly, as I told you even before, most of the countries now shifting, and they are emphasizing on the value addition. Like Burkina, they put a cargo that 10% of the material produced has to be processed locally. So slowly and slowly, all the countries, especially the West Africa, is going in this. Like Benin, like Burkina, like even Nigerians are thinking. They banned shea nut. They wanted all the shea nut to be processed here. They didn't want it to export raw. They wanted to export the butter or oil or something like that, the finished product. So it's happening and it will happen, it's a cycle. It's a world changes. East goes to west and west goes back to the east. So it will happen. Africa will happen.
No, Burkina, in fact, I was also impressed though, like, and I'm planning to visit Burkina soon because I have
Yeah,
read, I've seen a lot, right, with the new regime, right,
yeah.
doing so many things. Now, sometime when you look at from the outside, like, specifically, like, the Western media and the Eastern media, they are very different. So I'm still confused that actually is Burkina doing the great things which is shown in their like Eastern media, or it is like, West saying that actually you are having another challenge. And I think the Africa's, I would say, the processing part of it. This is where I would need a little bit of your indulgence. Some of the political risk associated with Africa. Though I have traveled extensively to Africa, and I strongly believe that it is
Mhm.
overhyped. Is your experience also same that actually it is overhyped about the political risk and all that? Now things are not that bad, where actually your investment can just like disappear.
Yes, it is overhyped, It's not possible nowadays. Previously it was happening. It's not that it has not happened. Tanzania in 1964 or somewhere, long back we have seen the Nyerere government took the all the houses. We have seen some of the things in Africa before. I mean, it's not in the recent past, except Sudan. Sudan is a different issue. Okay, but we have not seen that. But nowadays, the world has become so small, and with Mr. Trump always there in all the countries, it's very difficult to do certain things unless the US back down, US back that. What I
True.
mean to say is, if US is backing that this government should go, then it can happen. Otherwise, it doesn't happen.
No,
Otherwise, it doesn't happen. It's only one person, who can do anything in the world. Otherwise, most of the things are going as per the system. So I don't feel personally. We are also going in a oil factory there. We are going for a 600-ton solvent extraction plant in Nigeria. So I don't feel there is a security problem in Africa anywhere. I would have gone in other countries same with the same thought as I'm going in Nigeria. So for me, Africa, I don't feel any security problem. Security problem, if you have in Africa, you have in India as well. That's what I think. Politicians are same everywhere. कौवे
no,
काले ही होते हैं. ये बहुत सिंपल सा लॉजिक है. There is no second thought on this.
No, I totally agree. In fact, Mr. Trump, one thing he has done is that he has made the world democratic. So your investment risk is as bad in Ukraine or Russia, or as bad in
Everywhere
West in for example, like
Africa.
Greece, or
Hmm.
in Africa, like and even
Yes, of course.
the South America. Now you have to actually, like, based on where Mr. And luckily in US you have regime for 2 years or 3 years. It is not like,
Yeah.
it goes long and long. But yes, now coming back, leaving Mr. Trump, because if we start talking about it, you can spend like, days just
Yeah.
talking about him. Now coming back, like, if as someone who has been trading across the globe, right? And especially like, been a very strong voice when it comes to oilseed, from sesame to soybean. I know your love is more towards sesame than soybean, but still, like, what would be the red flags for, like, in 2026 for a traders? And we have seen, sir, people have burnt their finger in 2024 and 25 extensively, from large companies to a rogue traders to a smart trader. Everybody has lost. It's only out, like, how much less or more you have lost. Right. So in
Yeah. Yeah.
2026, what would be your recommendation, or three or four suggestion to keep an eye on the market?
Oh, I believe the currency is the most volatile, at present. It's previously what was happening, everything was dependent on demand and supply, but no more like that. Now you have to consider the currency, you have to consider the political situation at the destination, at the origin, and in the transit as well, because anytime somebody can tell you that this Red Sea is blocked or something, canal is blocked, and then you don't know how to deal with your shipments and how to deal with your production. So, nowadays, everything has been, it has gone extensive. It's not dependent on demand and supply. So I believe nowadays, 26 will be the major thing on currency and the geopolitical situation which is happening around. It could affect anything at any time. That's what I think. Because if Ukraine and Russia, they are also a good soya producer. US is all dependent on China. If China, and yesterday I was just reading in some newspaper that is still the US is planning for 500% duty on India and China on some of the products. So it happens like this, then US will have no alternative but to go for other product instead of soya. So everything will change. When you are shifting one problem, you are like shifting one problem for other. If you are stopping soya, if you are making more maize or more whatever commodity, the things will change in that commodity as well. So that's what I think. So these are the major thing, other than the demand and supply situation.
Perfect. So with that,
Yes.
thanks a lot, Alok ji. It was pleasure having you
Thank
as
you. Thanks
always, and
you.
always supporting
Thanks
our
a lot.
initiative
Yeah.
all the time. Thank you.
Thank
And
you. Thank you.
now we move to our next speaker. We'll be having Mr. Binod Anand. Mr. Binod Anand is a renowned policy strategist and a cooperator, not the corporator, but a cooperator, because he actively is involved in the Indian cooperative sectors. So he's widely recognized for his work in agriculture reforms and rural development. He has served on the Prime Minister's High Power Committee on MSP and agriculture reforms. As the executive president of the World Cooperative Economic Forum, he champions the solidarity economy, focusing on direct farmer to market linkages. He is a prolific writer on food security and has been instrumental in revamping the Confederation of NGOs of Rural India, that is known as CNRI. He specializes in integrating cooperative business models with global trade system to protect smallholder interests. Welcome, sir. It was a pleasure to have you.
Welcome. Thank you so much for welcoming me. It's a real pleasure to be with you.
Thank you, sir. So, sir, you know that we had just talked about a little bit of soya politics. So, when we see the globalized markets where soya politics often favors large trading houses, how can Indian cooperative aggregate enough volume to negotiate the better price point for our smallholder farmers? Last 2 3 years in soybean has been pretty bad for our farmers, unfortunately.
See, you must be aware about the new creation of the ministry and the three new cooperative multi-state, whereas one is dedicated for the exports, another is for natural farming, and third is from the seeds. It's all a matter of quality. Means that's the first approach. Is that the most important aspect is you need to create a federated scale, right? Instead of one big cooperative. So that one big cooperative has to be the have member from the grassroots, and that's what the cooperative economic framework is all about. So a small cooperative don't need to merge with one giant entity. They need federation. They need participation everywhere. And this is the beauty is that whatever the profit will come, it will go to three tier. That is to the village FPO or his PACs, or else to the district union from the state federation to national marketing entity. This is the new scenario where the marketing, contract, and exports, these all things are centralized. Now, why it matters is a matter of concern. Any trader like the earlier speaker or whomsoever the traders are, they would not negotiate with a 1,000 farmers or 5,000 farmers, but they will negotiate with a 1 million ton of demand, 2 million ton of demand, 10 million tons of demand. And that's why the federated cooperatives have to pull these things, this high protein meal, traceable supply chain, soya gain. Like Amul is a better example, but there are other best example in the world also about this cooperative economic framework. I must talk here about what the marketable lots through standardization is possible. Any cooperative need to work with a buyer or with exporters for that what kind of protein content is required, the moisture standard, and the other FAQ norms are there, how the bulk shipment would be possible, the contract, and all those things. So this is how through cooperative economic framework things would be in a better phase in both for pre-harvest also and post-harvest also. And through the minimum price floors and the volume-based discounts, whatever we are talking about, the price band, the cooperative can back all those things, even the arrangement of the finance, the power shift, the soya politics we are talking about, how the traders compete, for the farmer supply. It should not be the other way around. So this is how it fluctuates. We need to integrate a little different way own a farmers need to own a slice of processing too. So for example, say the commodity over the value, the crushing units where it goes, and the soya meal processing takes place, the oil extraction takes place, the feed manufacturing takes place. So in all those value chain through cooperative economic framework, the farmers organization at PAX level, from PAX to district union to the state places, all of these three chains, the farmers will get benefit of the value addition. So this is the beautiness of this framework, which is what we are talking about and what I am trying to say. So to counter strategy for this is there had to be centralized rail and bulk shipping contracts, but that need to be talked in advance with the farmers and the farming communities through cooperative.
Right. Sir, I totally agree, because luckily I've also been engaging with government very regularly on various aspects. And couple of years back, we had a good roundtable along with the Secretary of Agriculture and various stakeholders from the private sector. There is a beautiful scheme of Government of India known as PM ASHA. And in PM ASHA also, they are having a public procurement scheme. Unfortunately, in that roundtable, everybody raised one question, that actually the scheme is central government. It is allowed or given for implementation to the states. Now, states, they are having their own reasons and own very limited viewpoint of how the whole nation should be working. And then that leads to central government writing that actually you do this project along with so and so private player. And then private player get fatigued out, because at the state level, they never get opportunity of getting things done. How do you see that this new beautiful ministry has been created by Honorable Amit Bhai Shah, right? And I've been a big fan of the whole cooperative movement, because I believe for Indian farmers, that is the only way they can have a better realization. So cooperate plus cooperatives, right? So corporate and cooperatives, they work together. It can unlock value potential for our farmers. How do you see that actually that the going forward, right? This concept can be done. And my apologies being a little bit blunt. I believe the time is over where we give too much of strength to the state governments in agriculture policies and implementation. Central government, maybe through Ministry of Cooperative or Cooperation or through Ministry of Agriculture, need to take your lead. Your views on this, sir?
So you see, the India is very diverse country. We all are aware of. The hub and spoke model is there, but there is also cooperative federalism. So a farmer, whomsoever state he is, there are various, regular, different kind of set of laws he has to obey. But when it comes to marketing, which is where the cooperative and corporate meets, which is where the integration of minds takes place, aggregation at national scale is possible. A standardization with certified quantity is possible. pre-negotiable market before harvest is possible. Own part of processing and logistic is possible. And of course, sustainability is a premium lever here. You see, the union state government has a different kind of arrangement and different kind of working. But when it comes to working with a state government on different schemes, if on X scheme union state government works in a better way, why it is not with the Y schemes where the farmers and the mass of where the politics is involved, they cannot come together. So it has rather become a political tool. No, the schemes can be created, and that's why the committee is there. The schemes has to be administratively implementable, economically viable. Administratively implementability and economic viability is the most important aspect. Then the things will try that it is a business, how the business will come, how environmentally sustainable it is, and how collectively or politically acceptability is there. So you're talking about the political acceptability. It is a collective acceptability which matters in this case. There are various schemes. Means PM IST is one. Now it is on backtrack. There are different set of other schemes where the MSP point of view is a different, where the whole gamut of activities have been redrawn, to integrate the mind in union and state government stakeholders.
Perfect, sir. Very well articulated. And sir, you also talked about something which also, it touched me, where we talk about a cooperative exchange, right? I think that is something, the idea for that to go wholeheartedly to implement it has come. Because the previous exchange in commodity, which we talk about, which we know, I don't want to name it, they have tried to do few things, but because of the apprehension of speculative interest, and then actually rather than the discovery of the price, that becoming a speculative, I would say, ground for people to do all sort of things. It has not picked up, and now even those supposedly agriculture exchanges, now they are trying to get licenses to run it as a stock market. Now I think the corporation-led exchanges, that is where the unlocking for the real value for the farmers is going to happen. We already have infrastructure in format of e-NAM, right? So digitization at the mandi level, at the grassroots level has happened. How soon we can see what you have been talking about getting realized and executed? In fact, I think there is one portal is being launched by Honorable Home Minister for NAFED, right? Which is going to be playing a little bit of that part in auctioning and all that. But pan-India cooperative-led commodity exchange, do you think that is going to happen sooner than later?
Yes, that will happen, and that's a hard fact reality. I may answer your question. You cannot take name, but I can take name. You're talking about NCDEX. You see, the thing is that we have to be very clear that, see, the regulators are different in different nations, but the farmers are more or less they're alike. In US, this kind of the regulations were updated. It started with 1928 before Great Depression, and in 1971, 72 there were changes. In 80s they have changed. In 90s they have changed. They are changing themselves. US has 20 commodity markets, like 20 commodity exchanges. Our neighborhood country Nepal has 4 commodity exchanges. We are having a couple of. So why it is not growing up despite of a huge demand and the kind of the farmers and the kind of ecosystem we have is really things which we need to deliberate differently. Now the cooperative commodity exchange, especially if we will talk about the soya farmers or those commodities which are very important for the industry, I must say in the peak harvest season, prices do not fall because of demand, fluctuation. It is because farmers are forced to sell individually, immediately, and without bargaining power. So, in the packs to apex approach, already we are making a structure first. That's 2.5 lakh packs will have godowns. Those godowns will be integrated at one place. And that's how the negotiable instrument and e-warehousing and all those things will take place in a different fashion altogether. So, this is an era of artificial intelligence. So, things will be defined in that way. So that is why cooperative commodity exchange structure is there, but visibility, the leverage, scale and time will come in a phased manner, not in one go we can bring it. It's a huge change it would be, where the the commodity players, the profits will go again to the packs. So again, this is a packs to apex approach where we are going to benefit. Now, how it protects farmer from predatory pricing, I must discuss with you very briefly, very succinctly. It will end distress selling through storage plus finance. So this is the only model where from the grassroots to the stock market to the securities market, the storage and finance will be addressed. And thereby you will find a different set of cooperative warehousing schemes, the instant credit against it, this kind of so many startups are also in this scenario. So it is no longer the farmers will able to force during the harvest gluts. They will remove the traders, and the crash price concept will go on, will be a distant thing. So we need to create the infrastructure first. We need to create a grassroots kind of network which will be owned by farmers. It would not be owned by exporters or traders. So you can consider a time when there will be 2 lakhs, go down, so small, not bigger one, but all will be integrated with a blockchain. All every grain will be traceable. So that's what the collective marketing power would be through cooperative commodity exchanges. And since benefit will go, the cooperatives will be the member, the FPOs will be member. So there will be transparent price discovery. So no local no cartels, behavior of mandi manipulations, and also the big cartels like Chicago Board of Trade would not able to put the filter also on in the way they are doing is that. So the price flow through cooperative reserve, the import parity and export parity and all those things. So the storage, working capitals, predatory low balls, all things will be controlled through cooperative commodity exchange. So bottom line is that yes, it will see the light of the day. Things are going on. There is a viable path. And on those viable path, you must have seen the changes. Already it has been piloted that every packs will have go down. Honorable Prime Minister have already announced it that India is going to put a biggest investment ever possible in the world on the warehousing. So warehousing is a primary concern here. Rest is a technological thing, and rest integration of the minds like you in the cooperative sector. So I will love to invite you in the cooperative sector to think and reflect it upon, and all the exporters, traders, because everyone wants to make profit. Please make profit. Pass out something to the farmers also through cooperative commodity exchange. That's how the cooperative culture and cooperative economic framework will grow.
No, Binod, I totally agree with you. In fact, you'll be surprised that already because of the government's initiative, right, in focus on warehousing, and we have actually streamlined the warehouse receipt financing very well, right? If you see that we are among the best in the world, where actually warehouse receipt financing has become so well that some of the companies involved in that, they have got valuation of thousands of crore already in the market. And this is where I believe, unfortunately, I love them making money. Any Indian making money is, I like it, whether it is a cooperative or corporate. But at the same time, then the farmer get missed out in such calculations. And the model you're talking about is where actually the farmers, they're the most important people, because I would say that if we are not doing right things today, for example, let's take example of soybean itself. The disenchantment of the farmers, right? It compromises just not the farming in India, it compromises our protein security as a nation. And this is where I believe, what you are doing is very important. Sir, I also will just touch upon the environmental aspect of it, right? India has been, has globally taken a stand that we will become net zero by 2070, and without right reforms in agriculture, right? That's is not going to happen, because more than 80% of fresh water in India is used in agriculture. Close to 29.8% of greenhouse gases is the byproduct of our agriculture. How do you see that actually, we are able to do the sustainable agriculture by not putting all the burden on the farmer, who is the weakest link?
You see, the net zero emission, our Honorable Prime Minister has placed that by 2070 there will be net zero emission. A lot of climate change debate is there. I'm not with what is right, what is wrong. So much so has been talked about the water crisis and these things, the different kind of energy policies. One thing which you must have observed very lately is the bioethanol and the CBG, compressed biogas narrative. And this time it is the 12% rise in the demand of that is the import bill has reduced, but the quantity is enhanced by 12%. This is the strength of, where the almost 1.25 lakh crore rupees has been given back to the farmers through, this processes. So this is the way. First thing is that we need to be concentrate upon the kind of quality of seeds and the quality of produce or the quality of crop where the less water consumption would be there. That's the first thing. Second, how we harvest and how we use post that matters. So integrating all these things, be the carbon credit mechanism, be it the net zero emission, we will able to check the things the way it requires to be done. So while the India will allow the kind of green livelihood and the kind of various kind of free trade, these things, different kind of R&D things, policy retorted, different imports, the blending mechanism, the production subsidies. Overall, this will be an additional advantage to the farming community when the man and nature interaction the way it's happening now, and the man and nature interaction the way the globe is talking about, why various net zero emission and the carbon credit mechanism and all. I think India being the one of the world's largest producer of various crops, not only soyabean and rice and whatever the 22 and 23 scheduled prices commodities which we are producing, we already we are into the production of more than 500 different kind of varieties, and this is how the diversity is being respected. So there is a demand for that, and that structure is there. That's why we are talking about the cooperative commodity exchange, where only a handful of commodities would not be only domesticated and would not be traded. There could be other commodities also which can the trading can be done. So this is what the answer, straightaway answer to your question is. It depends the how the last farmer at the last mile will be connected with that net zero emission dream. If you will connect that last farmer with that dream, things will be different. When you will just avoid them, we will keep that as a data node, things would not be very very bright, or else very good for policy perspective. So it's a not market neutral aspect. It's absolutely market led activities.
Perfect.
That's what
So
I
now,
want to say about it.
that's a great insight, sir. Now, this is our last question, and in fact, it comes with a little bit of a red flag also, based on what we have been seeing. So we are seeing that the world is moving towards biodiesel, and that will lead to production of humongous amount of meal across the globe when it comes to soybean in particular. And on the Indian side also, we see that the poultry industry, the aqua industry, they're suffering because of the high price of soya protein or soya meal in India, because of our economy of scales are not there. India is having one of the lowest per hectare production when it comes to soybean. In this scenario, sir, how do you see that we are able to ensure that we also sufficiently focus on productivity, sir? We are listing this 830 to 880 kgs per hectare production of soybean for now, humongous, multiple decades, right? Past 20-25 years that has been happening. And this is where you see that farmers also shifting from soybean to maize and all that, which distort overall, I would say, that the economics of India's nutrient or the protein self-sufficiency. Do you see that actually, the government is looking at those numbers very closely? Because I think somehow in the broader picture, these small commas and full stop get missed.
Now, government is very serious about it. You must have seen the Honorable Union Agriculture Minister, releasing different kind of varieties. And just last year also, the Honorable Prime Minister has, released different kind of varieties. The statistics, it's something different kind of thing. At one farm, that's what again I'm bringing you. We have not seen the, Indian farm production in that perspective. We are a country with the good number of agroclimatic zones. Almost everything can be produced. All agroclimatic zones are there. So keeping just one variety, suppose, or two variety, or five varieties, 10 variety would not work in Indian circumstances. Here the things changes. Even in one, agroclimatic zone, there are sub-agroclimatic zones. So we need to see in that perspective that one seed would not work in all the scales. Different kind of seeds would be required. And for that, the cooperative kind of arrangement would be required, where the research would be farmers-led, not be the big multinational labs. They cannot decide that what is being produced in even one district of Hosangabad. Right? Hosangabad has four different kind of agroclimatic zones. So that is why you will find the statistics works in a different way. There are a field where you will find the one of the best production in the world. There are the fields where you will find the production is very low. Therefore, there is various factor of that. So our R&D institution needs to think in a different way. Industry also need to think in different way. And in answer to that, I will advise you to have an integrated approach. That's where the cooperative economic framework is required. To come out with this geopolitical dependency, where the protein capacity and hollow out the domestic protein capacity, the Indian oilseed farmers. So they all need to be at one platform where the green livelihood can be talked about, the green fuel abroad can be talked about. So the bottom line, the best question which I will put up here is will India allow the green fuel abroad in order to destroy our green livelihood at home? So this is what we need to answer ourselves. That if we are inviting the kind of technology or say that will be अगर हम किसान के ऊपर थोप देते हैं वो, so how things will be in a 10-year down the lane or 20-year down the lane? Do we require that? Today you must have seen that even the United States of America, in their national interest, has come out from the all DESA and ECOSOC, everywhere they have come out. So we also need to talk about our national interest first. Then we need to think about the green fuel, the renewable diesel and this protein debate. Protein can be sourced from different kind of plants, also different kind of, there is access to benefit transfer mechanism is there. So that's a different answer altogether.
Perfect.
Sir.
So Binodji, a parting comment from you, sir. Actually, the GMO, right? There has always been push from all across the globe for India to import GMO products. Now, basically, I am not against GMO because unfortunately, when I was engaging with a lot of ICR institutions, we have not done a holistic study of economic and environmental implication of GMO seeds in India. Now, I think before we allow anybody to send GMO products to in India, right, including I am not also in big favor of GMO-based edible oil or soya meal. But if we have to do it before that, actually, our farmers should also be given preference that they are able to compete and they can also grow GMO. Because otherwise, what happens is that for our farmers, we want them to fight the AK-57 or AK-56 of the world, while we tell them, I'll give you a wooden sword. So, sir, there should be a relook, and at least I'm saying that at the research level, we should start next 2 years, 3 years, because India has already allowed genetic editing, SDN1 and SDN2. So the government is progressive, at least thinking on that the power of biotechnology and genetics. But at the same time, I think we have to invest in research in finding out, is GMO really bad or good with Indian context, rather than just depend on the global studies. And then eventually someday, because of economic pressure, we allow others to send GMO to India.
You see, at least when we will have Sri Narendra Modi ji as an honorable Prime Minister at South Block, no pressure will work. That's one bottom line is there, and whatever kind of geopolitical and those tensions would be there. So we are not going to undermine our national interest and our farmers' interest as such. But when it comes to science, there is a very good quotation that science without humanity is a sin. That's what Gandhi had said long back. Politics without principle, the business without morality, science without, knowledge without character. So the science without humanity is a sin. Now you talk about, in that context, let us think about the GM. What is in GM, right? Which our ICR agencies cannot do. Why we want GMO from the, the big labs of UC Davis and other research institutions. What amount of money our government cannot give to our scientists? These scientists are there only in those universities.
100%.
Let's have our indigenous research, number one, so that IP things and those things would not be. Just few minutes ago, I told you, we have to think once that one in a big one component, that the unity in diversity. Our farmland, our geography is like that. We cannot have one kind of seed for everything. So that's about the GM technology. Technology has to be indigenous. We are now a great country now, fourth largest economy in the world. So we are roaring now. So why we cannot give AK-56 to the farmers made in India? In that case, that's part one. Second thing, we will allow the import, but give me in one line or give me an affidavit that those things would not have the kind of foreign elements and the kind of things what we have seen the Parthenian grass.
Yes.
It's an era of bioterrorism, sir, where we are living. This is an era where one country sovereignty, we have seen what has happened to the Venezuela. And now the gentleman is saying, forget the drugs. I will own your oil farms. Profit will go in our bank account. Right? So tomorrow somebody will send something by some kind of, something, anything can come up. Then how we will tolerate those things? It is therefore, when it comes to agriculture, when it comes to the food sovereignty, when it comes to the national sovereignty, we need to keep the things that's what in a different perspective altogether. That's why we are not allowing in that way. We need to create a good set of infrastructure first at the exim train, the good kind of the pesticide management and the seed bills, and they're all of 1968. There are few laws which are applicable pre-independence. When it comes to testing the foreign elements, the law which works is of 1914.
Yes.
Right? So where we are living, 1914, this is 2026. We are talking about 2027. When it comes to agriculture, you don't want to talk about 2047. When it comes to the jet engine, you will talk about the 2070. That वो तो नहीं चलेगा ना. Agriculture को the kind of technology is required need to be indigenous. That is what the thing. My farmers cannot just pay on the price. Today 6% of the seed price, tomorrow 10%, and then 12%, and then set of practices, and then agronomic practices could do the farming like this, and then they would not get the price also for their produce, because different kind of market players would be there. So it's a kind of, you are playing a game. In the first inning you batted well, and the second inning says, I don't want to ball you. Now you play football.
True.
So what is the crime my 14 crore farmers have done, sir?
I agree.
I will trade with you. Come on an equal platform. This is a cooperative era. I'm having there are 1,300 multi-state cooperative, hundreds of multi-state cooperative who are working on that. Let us work together. There is no corporate versus cooperator. We all are together. We are all working for Viksit Bharat, and that's what the agenda is at this moment. We need to integrate all those minds which can participate into the national development, Viksit Bharat creation, and national integration.
Perfect. But I totally agree, and I totally agree with you on this fact that if there is a GMO seed, it has to be the Indian developed GMO seed, indigenously by India, and actually which cater to Indian farmer. With that, and also, sir, the person sitting at the top of India's leadership, I also had opportunity when he was chief minister working with CMO. And yes, no pressure works on him. That I can also vouch for what you said. With that, thanks a lot for joining this session, sir. It was a pleasure to have you, sir.
Thank you, sir. Jai Hind, Jai Kisan, Jai Sahkar.
Jai Hind, sir. So now we have Mr. Sumit Gupta, who would be our next speaker. And Mr. Gupta is a prominent figure in agriculture analytics and commodity trading, an alumnus of IIT Delhi. He co-founded Agnomics Analytic Lab and currently serves as CEO of WASEDA Global. He is known for his data-driven approach to market intelligence, specializing in crop surveys and price forecasting. His career bridges the gap between the traditional commodity brokerage and high-tech world of technology and predictive analytics. He provides the demand signals that help traders and processors navigate the hierarchy of the global oilseed complex. Welcome, Sumit ji. It's a pleasure to have you, sir.
A very good afternoon, Deepak ji. It was a very kind introduction. So thank you very much. And it was
No,
very informative session we listened to just before this one.
No,
Thank you.
no. Thank you, sir. Actually, in fact, if I can talk about your accolades, the whole of 25 minutes, I can just keep on talking
No,
that. You have been humble saying that, it has been elaborate, but your I would say credentials, it needs at least 20 minutes of being talked
no,
about. My apologies to keep it short because of paucity of time.
no.
So now coming to the important question. So we have seen that using analytic models, and they are working pretty well in many of the commodities. Now, I would like to understand from you that using your models, for 2026, how do you see soya competing with the rest of the other basket in the edible oil, whether it's a rapeseed or palm or sunflower? Is it still the gold standard in protein, or we are seeing that maybe the other oils and meal, whether it is soya or whether it is sunflower or rapeseed, can dent?
No, it's a very important question and a very interesting question, Deepak ji. We have to look at 2026 in a context of what is happening globally. And that, to begin with, is how the macroeconomic situation worldwide is shaping up. Okay. As mentioned in the previous call, the president of a country gets kidnapped on 1st Jan. That does not tell us anything, let's say, about the country or person, but it tells about what kind of environment we are living in. And why I'm specifically mention about this thing, because Trump in his address has spoken a lot about Western Hemisphere. And interestingly, soybean is the only crop which 100% supply is in Western Hemisphere. And it comes into North and our side of the world into Asia. So that means the larger impact of soybean as a crop is going to rest a lot on what happens in the Western Hemisphere. So now coming on the oil side of it, so one, macroeconomic uncertainty is here to stay. Number two, on the veg oil side, we have seen last year sun oil crop was relatively less than normal in Black Sea, and hence we have seen that sun oil prices remain firm. And oil is nothing else but crude, but energy. And largely the prices of oil depends on the blending, on crude oil prices, on how overall gambit works. And what we are witnessing that palm ethanol mandates or biodiesel mandates are going up in Indonesia. And once these mandates are going up, it is going to mean that less availability of palm oil. And hence, we are going to witness relatively stable to firm vegetable oil prices going forward. And that also takes us to another important aspect which you have touched upon in the last session, that is of Atmanirbharta or our localization. So if macroeconomic uncertainty is there, geopolitical uncertainty is there, usage of vegetable oils is going up in ethanol or biodiesel. That means overall supply of oils is going to stay firm, and India needs to increase its stock at ports, which is equivalent to a month stock at the moment, so that overall there can be a cushion in prices. And hence, one thing you can for sure say that 2026 prices are going to remain firm, going to stay volatile.
Perfect, sir. So now, sir, coming to another important issue, talked about Western Hemisphere. Now we have to also talk about the Europe, right? Europe is also happens to be supplier of lot of oil seed. At the same time, it is also very important and pertinent destination.
Yeah.
We have seen that UDR rules have been delayed, and there is a grace period. Do you
Yeah.
think that actually Indians soya farmers, because our environmental data collection and that has always been found to be pretty short. Do you see that specifically when we talk about on the meal side of it, there is a possibility of you can use this grace period to push or at least create a better market for our soya meal players? Do you see that a possibility?
So, Deepak ji, I will differ on that side from the aspect of the question, because the aspect of the question is about the export market. Rather, I will flip it other way around. I will say what is the soybean production in India? In a bad year, 10 million, in a good year, 12 million tons. What is the potential of producing soya meal in India? Around 8.5 million tons on the max side, taking away human consumption, seed feed, and other aspects of it. Today, our poultry is growing at 8% every year. And once poultry is growing at 6 to 8%, it means on a demand base of 6.5 to 7 million tons, we are growing half a million ton of meal demand every year. That's one. Number two, it also takes us to a question that how, and once we are going to grow economically, our meal demand is going to continuously go up year on year. So the question becomes two-sided. Number one, do you believe that India should import meal on one end and export higher value non-GMO meal on the other side? Then yes, answer to that question is yes, we should fast forward our EUDR registrations, linkage of farm, identification process, which the Secretary of Agriculture in the SOPA meeting has very clearly said that they want to move in that direction and they want to uh, streamline and make it little faster. Okay, but I come from a point of view that we can only talk about exports when we increase production of soybean in India. Now, soybean competes with corn and pulses for acreage, and maize is a crop of yield increases, and pulses is highly volatile. So I will see it very difficult for soybean to increase acreages now from pulses or maize. And hence, the only function of production increase we are left with is yield and good weather. So, potentially, yes, we need to prepare ourselves for the European exports, which are higher value, better destination, consistent. And second part to it, on the other side, we also need to prepare on the supply security of soybeans in India. And Deepak ji, let's do a small number here, and let's assume India's production consumption of bean equivalent meal is 10 million tons. And if we are growing at 8%, that means we will double our demand every 8 years. So that means we will need 20 million tons of beans in 2035. And that means we will need 45 million tons of beans in 2040. So the question is, are we prepared for it? Are we ready for this kind of demand revolution? So I believe India overall demand story is very good. Overall opportunities are great, but yes, in the interim, we should prepare for the best possibilities.
Right. No, I totally agree with you. The productivity has to be the mantra going forward. Otherwise, there is a possibility of we losing out, right? And ceding our already high demand, right? Any country would love to, see the demand increase. And we are fortunate we are having that. But then actually, this lower productivity is always challenging it. And as we had a discussion in the previous session, I think government is on top of it and they are looking to solve that problem. And with God grace, I think that should happen. But that brings me to a little bit on again. I love to call it as soya politics, right? And that do definitely influence the demand signals. And I'm here talking about the global aspect. So
Mhm.
how do you see the supply and demand led market movements, or you are looking at the geopolitics and speculative interest weighing on? Because we also talk about in previous session about CBOT and we see sometime in one of the session I was talking to one very senior economist, and he said that sometime it happens that the tail wags the dog. So are we seeing that this future market actually leading to spot market changes rather than the other way around? So has the S&D is not the driving factors, but the speculative interest and the hedge funds driving what the prices should be?
So let's approach this question into three parts. Number one, India. Number two, global. And number three is the interlinkage of global and Indian markets. Okay. But before that, you said, if God willing, okay. I will put Ramdhari's Dinkarji's words in that. Okay. Uh, Shama Shokti us bhujang ko jiske paas garal hai. That means till the time we will not put effort, even God will not help you or help us. And I think there is a lot of effort being done on the government front, as you are also highlighting, to make India do right things on the agriculture. Result you cannot control, you can only control effort, and which is in the right direction. Now, what it means? It means that soybean production in India, there is no option, has to go up. it can only go up on account of yield. It cannot go up on account of acreage. Has work been done on that side? Answer is, I will say, contradictorily, no. There are two missions in India which are running, oilseed and pulses. Acreage for both the missions are down. Is it a good thing or a bad thing? Extremely bad thing for the country. Number three, are we approaching commodities from long-term point of view or putting a band-aid wherever there is a cut? We are approaching commodity side in a very short-term band-aid approach. Number four, it means are we a failure on the agriculture side? Answer is no. We have done great as a country. Indian farmers have done great. The only thing that we need to bring is a change in mindset that we are no more a country with supply excesses or a country where we should worry about surpluses. We are a country where we should worry about demand now, the way country's economic strength is going up. Now, coming on the question of global side, look, Western Hemisphere is always a producer. They have less people. In Asia, we have more people. So it's going to stay that way. Weather volatility, whenever comes, you have seen Chicago prices on soybeans trading 16 cents per bushel as against 10.6, 10.7, which is trading at the moment. So their farming is more of a commercial activity. Our farming is more of a livelihood, more of a living activity. So we cannot compare two things. But when it comes to interlinkage, we always have to see what is happening in the future markets worldwide. Why? Because it is one thing which connects both the market. Today, if it rains in Brazil, you know how the bean market is going to react. If it does not rain in South America, we know soybean oil prices will go up. If the uncertainty in Russia, Ukraine is going to increase, that means sun oil prices may remain firm. If Russia keep attacking drones in Ukraine on the sunflower plants, it means sun oil prices may remain stable to firm. If bioethanol or biodiesel mandates go up in Indonesia, it's going to impact palm supplies and demand. If Indonesia is going to increase levies to take care of local biodiesel, that means Indian oil prices are going to go up. Why I'm saying all these examples that we cannot sit in isolation. Today, if a butterfly flaps its wing in Brazil, it rains in India, and impact of it is felt in rest of the world. So it is a connected world. So we have to live with it accordingly. Now, part three of that question is, I will say the absence of future market in India is actually hurting both processor, consumer, and producer because there are no advanced price signals. Whenever there is an advanced price signal, there is more transparency. It actually helps everyone. You may question or you may always challenge what should be the method of futures market. That's always up for debate. But do we need a future market? Answer is yes. Because once you don't have an absence of future market, actually you take risk on the flat price. You take risk on the entire value of commodity. But once you have a future market, you take risk only on the basis. So your actually risk goes down. And hence processor and manufacturer find it easy and better to hedge their risk and do better business. So putting a summation of your question, I will say, yes, India is globally linked. Every country is now linked to each other. Number one. Number two, we need a futures market. Yes. And number three, yes, speculation is a part of business. The question is, how do we define excess speculation or less speculation? Because once you come with the angle of control, you end up putting policies which are a lot of time not tenable. So we need to take a larger view from a consumer point of view. We need to increase the depth of market, liquidity of market, and it's the fundamentals which are going to drive the market. And let me put the fundamental. Fundamental is very simple. India is going to be short every commodity. India needs to increase its production leaps and bounds. If we are not going to do it, we are going to see price volatility in months, years, and decades to come.
Perfect. Now, Sumit, coming to you for the last question, you talked about the future market, and future markets are definitely dependent on data and insight. And data and insight also is connecting the dot, which is something which we call artificial intelligence, and that is being talked about at length. How do you see going forward that the AI playing a role, specifically when we talk about some of the issues plaguing India, which is about estimation of our crop, right?
Yeah.
Our crop is is being talked about so much, so extensively, but unfortunately, we are seeing a challenge there.
Very good question again, Deepak ji. I'll put this way: there is a good heart law. Okay, what is that law? It says, for example, in Russia, they told people that you will be measured in the number of iron nails you are going to make. So everybody started making nails which were extremely light but extremely high in number. They said, no, no, these nails are useless. Now you will be measured on the number of what is the weight of the nail. So everybody started making a heavy nail without uh, having any use of it. Why I'm giving this example is to say that incentive structure is the driver of how the markets behave. And in India, there is no disincentive attached to wrong production numbers. Or the challenge in Indian crop analytics is this, that whether we change our production estimate of pulses from 6.8 million to 7.8 million in a surplus year and reduce it from 7.8 million to 6.5 million in a deficit year, nobody gets challenged for that. And who suffers? It's the consumer suffer. The point that we have to see that how we aggregate, how we come at the numbers which are actionable, that is only going to happen if we have monthly crop reports by Government of India. We have monthly demand estimates by Government of India. There is a self-adjusting mechanism on the production and demand side. And number two, coming on the AI part, look, it is a reality that we have to live with, that artificial intelligence is here to stay. And we all have to understand that how we make the best of it, how we put the IoTs, the right structure into the farm, so that the information blindness which is there in the market today converts into information transparency. And I will not see it as a challenge, I will see it as an opportunity, because it is going to transform Indian agriculture sector. In US, maximum yield increases since 90s came with the adoption of technology. And this is the path that India will trade in next 20 years.
Thanks a lot, Sumiti. Very well articulated, and I think that was where we have to be more agile, even in our forecasting, and come with numbers, right, on a near real-time basis, rather than actually waiting for advanced estimate coming on and off, and that too actually sometimes not on time. With that, I would like to go to our next speaker. So we are having Dr. Suresh, and Dr. Suresh has been a very, I would say, integral voice in making soybean production more farmer rewarding as well as sustainable. He's an international expert in sustainable agriculture and regenerative farming systems. At Solidaridad Asia, he coordinates the Vegetable Oil Sustainability Initiative, focusing on smallholder resilience and the development of national sustainability framework. With multiple decades of experience, Mr. Motwani has been a pioneer in implementing the 2020 model for sustainable soya in Madhya Pradesh, helping lakhs of farmers reduce chemical use and intense yields. He is a key strategist in reconciling an environmental demand of EUDR, that is EU deforestation regulation, with the practical realities of Asian smallholder farmers. Welcome, sir.
Thank you, Deepak ji. Thank you.
So it's always a pleasure to have you, sir, and thanks a lot for joining this call. And so I'll straight away go into the first question to you, sir. So when we see India's soya productivity has plateaued compared to the global giants like Brazil and the US, and beyond seed, what is the single biggest low-hanging fruit in agriculture practices that can boost yield for our upcoming season?
So Deepak ji, I agree. The productivity wise, you see the India has the less productivity compared to Brazil, US or Argentina. We will discuss surely for this. But one basic element we have to be understand, the India has the 90 days soybean crop, where the Brazil, Argentina, US, they have the 180 days crop. So this is a basic difference basically, where the Indian farmers can grow the three crops in the year in Indian fields, where the farmers in Brazil, Argentina, US, they grow the only two crops in a year. So this is one of the key thought I should say. Then we have to be discuss the issues around the low productivity in Indian soybean. The basic element is the water. When I say water, it's about the water management. So whatever is count as a irrigation water or the excess water, somehow in the soybean we introduced in India as a rain-fed crop only. So we do not train the farmers or do the extension work to suppose to the farmers to be have the critical irrigation for the soybean. Always the farmers looking for the sky to have the water for their soybean crops. So this is one of the issue. We have the sufficient examples available, the research available, varieties available through different systems, technical research centers in India also. Farmers are getting the 3 ton per hectare also. Some farmers with the sufficient water availability and the other practices. So as an organization, we are working with the many farmers and we also have some successful examples. So water is one of the key. Second is about the extension systems. Surely the different department from the state, central government, they are working with the farmers. But somehow we treat soybean as the one of the crop which can be grow in the any environment, any climate without any input also. We really need to be manage this crop professionally, technically, with the good systems available. So this is an initial remark, but we can discuss the more factors around the soybean productivity, Deepak ji. Yeah.
No, sure, sir. I totally agree with you. And this is where actually, like, as you rightly said, that we talk about soybean, a crop which can be grown anywhere and everywhere. But predominantly Maharashtra and Madhya Pradesh has been in the forefront of growing this crop. Now, coming back to question, I also put it to Sumit. This EUDR, also we know that actually, you are someone who have been working very closely on sustainability and environmental factors. Do you see that this extension or the grace being given, it can be seen as a positive for at least for India to have a more preparatory windows, as well as we can get into the compliance part of it sooner than later?
See, for the Indian soybean, basically, we are already have the many factors available for the UDRs. Indian soybean is not the deforested soybean. We do not have the certain environment issues which is applicable for the other nations. But I agree by providing this 1 year grace, it can be smooth the systems. What is we required, the technical solutions on the digital front to traceable the all supply chains. It should be sufficient. But I again say we have the privilege compared to the other soybean grow nations. India has the non-GM soybean, and the many of the sustainability issues are not concerned with the Indian soybean, except the few link with the child labors or the labor laws. This can be further work on. Yeah.
That's a great point. So, I see, I like the optimism which you are having. Now, coming back to your work in Madhya Pradesh, we are seeing because of the effort of people like you, that there has been thought about sustainability, whether it is about water, whether, and in fact, I have been lucky enough to visit the work you have been doing on ground and how it positively it has impacted the farmers. In fact, we have also seen because of the right agronomical practices, the productivity also of the farmers supported by you increasing. And this is where I think, do you see that one of the issue is that for sustainable soya, we are not seeing a commercial viability. Is that restricting, and should something be done on that part?
Actually, it's not only about the soybean. When the external certification is applicable for the any commodities, it should have the some of the extra privilege, extra premium for the farmers, so they can fulfill the requirement of the different documentation and the traceability elements. For soybean particularly, we try our best to be get into the all sustainability practices, and many of the farmers are also implementing these all practices in the field. But when you talk about the extra premium, so it surely need the special mechanism where these type of traceable, sustainable soybean or any other commodities can be have the more privilege compared to the general soybean or general commodities which coming into market. So we really need to be work on this. Even for the Indian soybean, there is a sufficient opportunities in the Europe. There is a huge demand for the non-GM soybean and soya-based products. So systems are in place with the support of the many industry associations, like we closely working with the SOPA, and we are trying to be set up the some sort of the model where the Indian soybean can be have the extra privilege from the European market being a non-GM and the traceable soya with the acceptability of the all sustainability standards. We recently developed the one sustainability standard along with SOPA and the Indian Institute of Soybean. It's called the ISSS, Indian Standard for Sustainable Soya, and many of the farmers are already implementing the practices pertaining to this ISSS. But market, I agree, we have to be work on this jointly with the industry associations. Yeah.
No, that's a great input, and I think our own standards would be, I would say, adherent to, because I've not seen them, right, to the global norms. Now coming to last question to Dr. Suresh, like you have also talked about briefly about the extension system in India, and this is where we have seen that the how you have used digital technology to connecting millions of farmers across India, and with the click of a button, you are able to give advisory, and now you are also automated that using AI. So you have used that actually how the soya farmers in general, in particular, and overall farmers in general in India, right? They can gain out of such digital solution to ensure that, like we are able to provide extension service in do how sort of mindset, rather than like giving one message, which we have seen many of the government extension Atma system doing that. 230 kg urea dal dena, right? That doesn't work. Right. And I've seen that you have been very specific and contextual. So we would like to understand from you that, how that initiative is going, and how it can be scaled, because scaling such initiative is the need of the hour.
I agree. I must agree basically. अब वो जमाना नहीं रहा कि खेती किसानी मानसून का जुआ होता था. We have the sufficient technologies available, the AI systems available, which can be predict very appropriately for the any type of the weathers. In our programs also, we have set up the automatic weather stations in the farmers field. From there, they can get the right time advisory on the climate agenda or climate factors. So I must agree, and also would like to be emphasized basically the all the extension systems from the government institutions or whatever the private sectors should utilize available technologies, AI systems in place. And I can foresee in after 5 years or the 10 years from now, the all farmers will be able to be do adopt these all technologies. If they are not adopting these all technologies, they might be not in the farming. So they might be convert to the service sector. And with my own assumption, I foreseen basically the new generation which is coming now. It's quite efficient to use the AI systems, and it will be difficult for the lot of the populations working in the agriculture sector for now. I can foresee by next 10 years, around 35% of the farming activities is going to be shifted to the service sector. So believe me, when we say we are the farming economy, or the 70 or the 75% farmers are there in the country, it's not going to be the realistic case now. It is decreasing. Now we have around 56% farmers in India, and we can foresee after 10 years or the 12 years from now, it will be only 25 or 30%. All farmers will be converted into the service sector. This is a reality basically we can assume. Yeah.
Right. Now, thanks a lot, Dr. Suresh. And in fact, I would invite all the people who are looking at this webinar, or would be looking at this webinar, like as a deferred recording on LinkedIn and YouTube, that please do connect with Dr. Suresh, visit his Center of Excellence, look at the great work they are doing, and believe me, that is one of the very profound story of how grassroots level impact of digitization can happen, giving real impact to our farmers. So please feel free to reach out to us. Also, we will connect you with Dr. Suresh. Look at what they have done and please replicate it. And especially those who are in the policy making, right? Your Vistar and Atma are of no good use until unless what Dr. Suresh said, that it has to have a very strong digital play, not in piecemeal, but in an impact, I would say, exponential impact creation mode, and what Dr. Suresh and his team has been able to achieve. Thanks a lot, Dr. Suresh, for joining us. And now I will go to Mr. Sanjeev, and this is our privilege to have Mr. Sanjeev Asthana, a veteran, a legend in the agribusiness industry, with more than 30 years of experience in global food and agriculture sector. As a CEO of Patanjali Food, he oversees one of the India's largest homegrown FMCG, and oilseed processing empire is one of the part of the broader Patanjali ecosystem. Mr. Sanjeev has held senior leadership roles at the top global commodity companies. You name it, all some of the largest multinational and Indian bread companies. He has played a very important and critical role in taking to the level they are today. He has served on several government task force for agriculture reforms as well. As a president of Solvent Extractors Association of India, he's also a very strong voice when it comes to policy. as an expert in navigating the thin margin of edible oil industry while driving the large-scale sourcing and distribution models in one of the world's most price-sensitive market, he has, to his credit, many global awards as well. Welcome, sir. It is a pleasure to have you on this call, sir.
Thank you, Deepak. Am I audible?
Yes, sir. You are audible. I'll just pin your video part of it because yeah. Okay, perfect. Now you are on screen. Thanks a lot, sir. So first question, sir. We have seen that traditionally the meal or the protein was the value driver for soybean industry in India. With Indian edible oil pricing getting renewed, and we have also seen a lot of volatility in 2025, and 2026 doesn't look very different. So are we seeing a permanent shift where the oil side of the bean now dictates the crushing margin, or even the meal will still play some role?
No, not at all. I think meal typically has gone through some bit of stress, and on account of multiple factors that have impacted. So right from where DDGS, as you do know that there's a lot of, as a byproduct of the ethanol, there's an enormous amount of DDGS which is hitting the market domestically. Even the ethanol mandates in the US have also forced a lot of DDGs to start competing with the Indian meal as it goes to the Southeast Asian market. So that is one challenge that India, the meal faces currently today. The second, a larger issue, what I see for the industry is that the lot of poultry feed manufacturers, especially on the poultry side, they have started setting up their own crush units in terms of complete backward integration, which is quite exceptional. Not many places in the world, typically all the large economies, you will find that there is this level of integration that the poultry market is doing. And that tends to, have its own bearing in the way how it is, the whole piece gets impacted. So, for example, multiple feed companies, their desire to come to the marketplace to buy from the regular crushers has also diminished substantially. And the third piece has been that, with the surplus, both from DDGS account, the integration that the poultry industry is doing is, as an outcome, has been that the demand for feed and the soybean meal tends to look a little diminished right now. And that's why the share of oil meal in the overall crush economics has gone down. But I don't think it is going to be something that will remain perpetually there. There should be solutions, on the horizon, because as a protein deficit country with the poultry sector growing at the fastest clip, more than 8%, in terms of the disturbances that we are seeing on the Western Hemisphere, politically and otherwise, with the soybean supplies, may get impacted to the South Asia especially, and Southeast Asia. So that impact will also have a role to play. So my sense overall is that while currently it does seem that for this year and perhaps for the next year, we will see pressure on the soybean meal, and the oil will become the major driver for crush economics. But longer term, my feeling is that this should tend to stabilize, and we should pretty much go back to the economics as it has played out, in earlier years, where the meal was the driver and oil was the secondary the byproduct of the crush business. I think it should tend to stabilize on that side.
So one more question, as you rightly pointed out that for time being, oil would be driving it. But at the same time, we see that the efficiency of our oil production in India, right, when we talk from bean all the way to the oil, right, is not that efficient. So it always makes a little bit more sense, with the current regime of, I would say, the import duties we are having, to have crude oil imported and converting it to refined oil, rather than actually go all the hog, right, from bean to the oil. Do you see that is going to impact our farmers in a way that actually they might not be getting the right price eventually for the season?
In a huge way, Deepak. And I think that will be, we'll be shooting ourselves in the foot if indeed India were to go to that direction of importing the crude oil and refining it, which will encourage certainly the refining industry. But I think the crush has got a much larger intensity of employment. Crush has a much larger intensity of the number of people which are impacted. So you have got a massive architecture in India which is built around the adatiyas, the commission agents, the traders, the farmers. You've got large number of transporters in the industry. So it is what it does is that it's not just a issue of the economics of a trade, but a larger ecosystem of Indian agriculture itself, as well as the employment that it generates, and I think the economic value generated by virtue of the crush. So any temporary challenge that we may have around the economics of crush, or we might the surpluses that we are seeing on the meal side, which is kind of driving some bit of economics in the way the beans are getting priced, I think cannot become a reason for decisions being made, which will have a much larger impact in terms of how the Indian agriculture sort of does. That's my point number one. The point number two is, which is even more germane to the to the overall debate around the self-sufficiency. India must continue on the path of increasing our oilseeds production. We must make all efforts to ensure that we are on top of the game in terms of making all efforts to increase their productivity and the production of soybeans, rather than saying that this economics doesn't work out, so let's go to the economics of crude oil. So I would really sort of refrain from going in that direction, but really urge the policy side and the industry side that we must do all we can through the associations, through the industry and otherwise, that the production and the productivity must increase in the oilseed segment, especially for soya, which has been very flat for nearly 20 years and we haven't seen any tangible gains. Whatever can be done should be done, but we must encourage the domestic crush and the agriculture production of soybeans to make sure that we have the entire ecosystem which has evolved in last 30-35 years. Since the soybean industry started coming to the fore and it's became a force to reckon with, I don't think we can discontinue with that.
So we are having, sir, luckily, Mr. Binod, who happens to be the part of the Prime Minister's committee for MSP, right? He's right in the call. The current regime of the import policies and structure in India, as you rightly mentioned, that it has moved with the mindset that for a short period of time to give consumer support, right, destroy, or I would say deform the overall structure of India's soya industry itself, and it impacts directly the farmer, right? We have seen that because of push towards ethanol and the maize, acreage has gone down. A lot of crushing units, right? They are not seeing light at the end of the tunnel. They have started also receding, and in the long term, it can deform the India's soya ecosystem itself. In your view, though industry and the part of industry who were pushing for having the bigger differential between the crude and the refined import duties, is it time actually we start looking in the long term and saying that, hey, to support our crushing industry as well as and because crusher buys from the farmer eventually, right? We look at our current import policies because they are not pro farmer at least, and even they are not very positive for Indian companies which want to create their name and become a globally competitive economy. When for example, your company or any company which is into direct crushing business, because importing crude is simple and then refining it, neither it needs too much of capital and neither it needs actually too much of rocket science to do it. So are we playing in the hand of where just to give some comfort to the consumer, we are creating a long-term dent to our soya farmers and the crushing industry?
So Deepak, this is a great question, and it's actually not just today, but this unfortunately has been the bane of policy formation in India. When it comes to taking decisions, the policy has tended to benefit the consumers a lot more. The sensitivity towards the consumer concerns has been a lot more than compared to the farmer side. And I can give you not one example, but a range of examples virtually in every single policy formation on the trade side or, on the consumer affairs side, where this has tended to benefit the consumers a lot more. So, for example, where the farmers could have benefited to get the benefit of, let's say, in case of rice, when the prices spiked, suddenly the government in many instances has come and banned the rice exports, where the farmers could have benefited from very high international prices. But what it would have done is the domestic inflation would have gone up as well, because rice prices in India would have gone up. But when it came to the policy side, the government chose to ban the rice exports and make sure that the prices remain depressed. In case of veg oils, we have seen successively over a period of time that we have tended to be way more sensitive towards, in last 2-3 years, towards the consumer concerns than really the concerns of the prices of the oil seeds, which typically, if they're encouraged and supported and incentivated, would tend to benefit the farmers a lot more, and it would automatically spur more growth on that side. I can give you examples nearly a decade and a half back, when wheat exports were happening in a large way, the farmers could have got nearly 15,000 a ton more. The government chose to ban wheat exports and, went in for banning the exports and kept the domestic prices low. And so over a period of time, over last 2 decades, 3 decades, this has been a challenge. It's a bane and of the policy formation, and a huge issue is there. The government has come out with a solution, which itself I'm not necessarily in agreement with, where the government has increased its role in the procurement system to a very large extent. So, for example, they virtually crowded out the private sector from the grain segment, virtually. In wheat and rice, you can see the size of procurement that we have, the PDS distribution that we have created, the food security umbrella that has been provided, which has benefited, of course, the poor in the country, 80 crore families being given 5 kgs of grain every month. So there's a big benefit, offshoot benefit. So what government has tended, the response to this dilemma, whether you focus on the consumers or focus on the farmers, and how do you deal with that? The government has tended to ensure that, that going for much more enhanced procurement of the commodity, give it to the public distribution channel, or if you release it in the open market, give a subsidy. So what it is doing is the twin factors. One is at one level, it is keeping the prices depressed. So the natural market play of supply and demand is getting wiped out in range of commodities, especially in the food grains and partially in the oil seeds. And if you look at the couple of other segments which are critical to the economy, that you are saying that the core fundamentals of supply demand dictating the prices, and that spurring the production or the otherwise has typically tended to go away. And artificially, we are sort of managing that. Second is the amount of allocation of resources that is going into managing this this dichotomy in the, how do you deal with the farmers at one end and the consumers at the other, is also putting enormous pressure on the resources which the government has, and towards dealing with the policy side of how to get addressed. But the third, which is the most important one, I believe, that by crowding out the private sector entirely from the food grains, which is not a subject matter of your question, but I wanted to point that out because since you raised a very critical point that, this discussion around farmer versus consumers, is that the private sector at some point of time will continue to diminish, will get diminished in its role play in the market making. And I feel that it will have a permanent longer term damage, where if the core of India, which was dotted around commission agents and small traders and, storekeepers and little, the village level consolidators and the whole of that system, if they get sidelined and it is replaced by government as this humongous buyer, towards meeting its policy objectives, I think will have a long-term impact. So in one sense, there is a real challenge which the government has to deal with. But the policy response, I feel, has to be balanced on two lines. And of course, there's a political economy, there's a reality of economy and reality of politics and how entire thing is dealt with. But my feeling is, in the longer term, Indian agriculture, in terms of yields, in terms of production and productivity, if it has become hyper dependent only on the policy side or the government side for its survival. For example, the other day I discovered that on the paddy side, nearly 40% of what the country is producing is being purchased by the government. And so now that scale and size of operation, essentially what it means is the private sector is entirely sidelined, which was really determining the market making of the prices and giving impulse to the producers and the buyers to really respond in that sense. With the commodity futures banned, with the government role in procurement and distribution, and with the entire crowding out of the private player, I think it's longer term, it's debilitating the entire sort of architecture of Indian trade, which was built over hundreds of years, I think will have to be strengthened. I think it will have to get more organized. We'll have to ensure that the domestic production should continue to increase, where a lot more research money has to go into it, and both the entire ecosystem of farming and the farming system and others have to be made more accountable, more empowered, more incentivated to ensure that the core food grains that we have in terms of the oil seeds, the food grains and the feed grains, we need at least way better than the world average we need to go towards, and also build up this excellence in terms of, how do we get better than the average of the world, and how do we feed the growing population where the demand will continue to increase. And, and we have the real possibility with the largest arable land in the world. We have real possibility of, India being the agriculture, sort of the food basket, certainly for itself and to the large part of the world. I think that is a challenge and an opportunity or an issue with the policy formation as we see. So, long answer to your short question, but I'm very pro agriculture. I'm very pro Atmanirbharta. I'm very pro domestic sort of production and supporting our, the farming system. Not necessarily at the cost of consumers, but our trade policies must see this in account rather than looking at shorter term solution to these issues as they keep arising. And that is something that we as industry needs to sort of give the right inputs to the government, and the government also in its wisdom has to take the right calls in terms of looking at the short term requirement, but also at the long term sort of growth momentum that it can provide to the economy that it must focus on.
No, sir. In fact, like you said, long answer. No, sir. It was, I would say, appropriate answer. No, sir. I'll just give you some data facts, like exactly what you talked about. We did a calculation at KYC, which is the research group we are having. The whole restricting the export of rice, putting MIPs, and then opening it up later on, because it was a false call, because we were not having such a shortage that it needed that. It has cost the Indian farmers $2.5 billion. Right. Now that has also led to another scare where actually we are sitting with now the war chest of close to 60 million metric ton of rice, 3 times above buffer, which is costing government currently, the inventory cost is $12 billion. We are sitting on $12 billion of inventory, which could have been utilized to do something better. Now, taking this discussion, sir, a little bit more forward, sir, but don't you think that it has sometimes the inputs which is given from the industry also, right? We are having so many different associations with so many of interest. The voice which goes to government, because one of the agriculture secretary was telling me that, Deepak, I receive 200 letters every day from different stakeholders, right? And most of them calling themselves to be associations, themselves calling to be the councils, calling. In fact, because my letter used to be one of them. So I asked him one fine day, sir, actually I've written to you, I have not even responded, or, generally you call me back. He said, Deepak, I receive 200 letters every day. Don't you think that actually, we need to do also think on that? Because signals going to government, they are so varied and with so much of confusion. And believe me, most of them are not backed with the numbers, they are just backed with the emotions. किसान मर जाएगा, कंज्यूमर मर जाएगा, कर्नाटका में ऐसा हो जाएगा, महाराष्ट्र में ऐसा हो जाएगा. So are we where actually too much of noise being created with no reason, and then that the beauty of 24-hour business channels, right? I've stopped going on them. Luckily, over past few I'd say at least half a year, right? People go there, and then actually again there is rightly, wrongly, everybody goes and talk, and definitely the anchors, they don't self have the right numbers. They don't counter. So don't you think that we have created as a country so much of noise where actually the policymakers, they're also so confused what needs to be done?
So Deepak, again, fantastic point that you raised. And this is a thing that I used to talk at CII regularly. So for example, and this is a little slightly dated, I don't know how active you were, when Mr. Montek Singh Ahluwalia was the Planning Commission chairman, and even post that. And I can guarantee this today, that you look at presentations on Indian agriculture, which were made 30 years back, and you open those presentations, let us say 7-8 years back, not now, but they have improved substantially because of aided by, support of AI and a lot more that the research quality has become better. But till 7-8 years back, I can tell you that you could almost say it was ditto every single slide. 30 saal mein, there was virtually no improvement in the quality of inputs that were given. the the quality of the data that was being provided, the analysis that was backing it, and the new ideas or ideation that the associations had to do or the industry had to do. And that was a huge, I would say, a negative reflection on the quality of discussion and debates which the industry had. You can today go into any meetings, and I serve on multiple committees, various associations, include one or two you mentioned just now, but even otherwise on the other national committees of the chambers of commerce and the discussion that we have in various seminars and otherwise. A massive challenge has been that the quality of debate, unfortunately, has been either average to below average. And I'm not suggesting that, that the people who are talking about it are not doing a good job or they're not knowledgeable. It is simply that's a challenge of India. That we talk more with emotions, we talk with more opinions. You show me the face. If Deepak Pareek looks very convincing, I'll agree to his opinion. If Sanjeev Asthana I don't like and he said something which is not valuable, it's not rubbish. So that's how the policy formation happens. And I'll give you maybe in more private moments when we talk at the highest of level, once I made this point. So our policy formation, unfortunately, has also been, I would say, very anecdotal in its overall orientation. So what is anecdotal and situational? That I gave an instance कि नहीं वहाँ पे मैंने देखा था कि बारिश बहुत ये क्रॉप खराब हो रही थी, भीग रही थी, सब डूब रहा है, 2 वेयरहाउस बिल्कुल खराब है, मेरे को लग रहा है पूरा इंडिया में 10% क्रॉप बर्बाद हो जाएगा, चलो ठीक है बैन कर देते हैं, ये कर देते हैं. Now it is not in the current regime. There is a lot more emphasis on data, for example, lot more emphasis in terms of the inputs that are received, lot more research orientation has come in, and I think that is a huge improvement that I see. But where the chambers are found wanting, where the associations are found wanting, where the industry is found wanting, that when we start recommending, that problem is that it is not with proper data points. It is not with the, and if the data points are given, it's not with the proper analysis that is being given with that. It is not looking at the perspective of the government as to their challenges, what they're facing, and how to address that in a way. So it's a balanced view that industry gives. Industry is always giving with its, but to an extent with its own interest in mind, but that is not what the government is grappling with. They have got an issue to deal with is on the agriculture side with the farmers. They have to deal with the consumers. They have to deal with the availability, and they have to deal with their own challenges of resources and how it is to be done. So if we give recommendations which are, as an association I'm talking, which is very limited to our interest only, without being mindful of the other concerns which the policy side has, then you will always find that the government is frustrated with the quality of inputs what it gets. And government is not in business. So government has no wherewithal to understand the nuances of the business to the point of what you just said, $2.16 billion lost for the value what it could have created, or the interest where could this have been handled differently had it been addressed like this. Unfortunately, that never comes to the fore because the inputs that are going to the government are not carrying all this into account. And industry has in all its wisdom, in its knowledge and the capacity has it. But unfortunately, the amount of diligence that we do, the amount of seriousness with which, many a times we are putting up the recommendation, the way when we go prepared to the government in terms of giving really a true picture to say that this is how it is and this is what the issues are. And these are 5 sort of pathways that you can take to really build up on the policy side, but this could be the potential impact in each of them, and that's why you take it. That, unfortunately, is not a culture in India. So barring a few think tanks, which are serious in nature, you will find that the entire policy formation in the West, in Europe and matured economies in US and Canada, 100% of policy formation is meant through the think tanks. It flows up to the policy side. And that is how it happens. And think tanks are giving very balanced viewpoints and the associations are working through that. So there's a lot of intellectual input, a lot of analysis, neutral analysis. Industry associations are looking at it very differently. So the government has all the inputs that it can get really to take those decisions when it does. Whereas in case of India, as you rightly said, and what I felt over a period of time, that I think the industry, as an industry, we need to be a lot more matured. As associations, we need to be a lot more pragmatic and must have a multidimensional view of also the concerns of the policymakers when they're forming the policy, and be a lot more, I should say, responsible in the way we present a viewpoint, which can then be taken seriously into account for the government to take those actions. And in general, I would say that that has been found wanting, barring very few the articles that I read, which have got a balanced perspective, barring certain conversations, that happen in the sort of policy rooms that you find, or in the association rooms of the industry. I think industry has a lot of catching up to do to come up with the reality check and the way they can give their inputs for government to take them seriously and really take into account when they're forming these policies, to take all the factors into account and then make it a lot more pragmatic and a lot more interesting. And I think, to my earlier comment, what I was talking about, why there are challenges, I think perhaps one of the gaps could be that industries' inability to come up to the level where the government sees, the merit of what the recommendations are, and then is able to decide that as to what the right pathway is. So where India benefits overall, and if India were to benefit in all the stakeholders, then also industry benefits as well. And so you are right, actually, that is a challenge, and I think we need to do a lot of soul searching, and we need to do a lot more diligence while making recommendations, whether it's on television as the industry or association goes, or in front of the government when we give those memorandums, or when we talk to the government officials. I think we need to have a superior preparation and a better preparedness when we talk, and should do a lot more insightful conversations than just random opinions that typically we tend to give.
No, just on this discussion, my last point would be, you'll be surprised, I was assessing, except couple, we don't even have trade economists, right? Either full-time or part-time with majority of our association. And you'll be surprised that whether I talk about IGCs or various, I don't want to name countries, some of the countries do have their own export association and import associations, right? They hire my service as an economist more than any of the Indian associations, right? So that's tell you, the type of, I would say, effort it goes in making a recommendation, because when a recommendation goes on a letterhead, right, it has to lot of sincerity, because it might change a government policy. And sometimes, that wrong advice can lead to wrong decisions by the government. And we are a large country. Now, coming to yourself, the last question, right? Do you see that we can get into the specialty or the high value, right, oil scenario in soya, rather than just trying to be in bulk refined soybean oils? Do you see, because you also on the FMCG side, just like what we are seeing in the wheat flour, protein enable, or having low gluten. So do you see we can also look at very specialized oil, which India's growing middle class or upper class can also play a vital role, and can also become something which can be exported to the rest of the world?
So fairly straightforward answer, Deepak. Yes, it can do that, but that market is actually fairly small right now, and it'll take a long time before specialized products or soya-based products, for example, soya foods as an example. There's a great opportunity in India, whether it's a soya milk or tofu or value-added products, or different soya oils, or deep frying, etc. Which are a lot more. These variants are available. That market is very niche. That market is rather small at this point of time, and it remains pretty much at a concept level, but it is growing. But the base is so small right now for it to make a significant impact on the overall economics of the soya fortunes. I think perhaps there might be a limitation. So my sense is that should the industry be working towards it? Absolutely, it should, including some derivative products out of that, whether it's, vitamin E or soya-based SPCs and protein concentrates and protein isolates and other elements of soya that can be used. I think certainly that industry has to move in that direction, because that is where the opportunity lies. That is where exports are going to grow, and or lecithin-based products, or otherwise. There are, of course, a lot more applications of soya oil in different industries, or otherwise, including paint industry, and a lot of application-based products can be developed. The point is that it requires a lot of research. It requires a lot of spend. Industry doesn't have the wherewithal to address all of those. And towards the food side, etc., yes, there's an opportunity, but it's small. So primarily the core, if we don't get the foundation thing right and keep attempting newer and newer things, it'll have a challenge. So I think I would say that the pathway for soya, if I can take a minute to just talk a little more on the on soya side, the pathway to success is that from the current levels of productivity of less than a ton, 925 or 950 kgs per hectare that we get, I think the effort should be that we should certainly take the crop closer to 15 million hectares, 16 million hectares on the same land area. And which means that we're talking about 1,500 kgs of productivity per hectare on soya. We should have more investments going into the soya industry so that there are better efficiencies that are there. We should focus a lot more on the value-added products that you talked about, as well as on the exports, which we are more efficient. And last but not the least, the support in terms of the policy side, that on GM versus non-GM or otherwise, I think that India can deal with quite effectively. And even if the GM imports were to happen, I think our capacity to deal with that effectively is pretty much strong. But I think the part of that can be channelized towards the poultry sector, so we can still have pathways to deal with the trade negotiations as they're going on by canalizing that, and that specifically going to a particular segment rather than coming to the mainstream food chain, if that is a concern. But overall, what I'm trying to say, Deepak, is that the fundamental challenge industry has is that we have lost the production and the productivity side if it gets addressed appropriately. The pricing to the farmers, gets attractive. The industry gets more efficient when it gets more beans, so it's able to utilize its capacity better. Once the more oil is available, that our dependence on oil as an imports reduces partially, and we focus a lot more on the domestic side. I think that will alter the fortunes of soya. And the resources which today are spent in different ways, I think should be spent on the National Oilseeds Mission that we have right now on the oilseeds, and the National Mission on Edible Oil Palm. I think both should be strengthened. And if we continue to going on the right path and improve the productivity in mustard and soya and sun, I think we'll be in much better shape. And I think rather than waiting 10 years for that to happen, I think the policy side, I would strongly recommend to the government that, as industry and otherwise, how we can fast track that progress. What is it that which is limiting, and what are the inputs required, and how the farmers can be supported. If we can get this right, I think we'll get a lot of things right in the soya industry. So it's a challenge. It's not easy, and we've got used to a particular way of how things are. But I think that status quo has to be challenged for things to change, and that things can change only for the better if we do it right. And I think it'll help all the stakeholders in the value chain, right from farmers to trade to industry to the government. I think if we can get just simply the production numbers up by 50%, and on a very sort of milestone-based, targets-based approach that over the next 5 to 7 years we'll be able to do that. I think that is where the solution lies, not in tinkering with this and that or otherwise. And I think really we will not get much of headway there.
Perfect. Thanks a lot, Mr. Sanjeev. It's a pleasure always to have you. And as you rightly said, we need to transform. The tinkering is not going to help, and chalta hai aur aage nahi chalega if we really want something good for the soya sector and for the country as well. Thanks a lot. It's always a pleasure to have you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you.
So now we will be moving to our next guest, and it's I would say, extremely insightful discussion we had so far, and we have touched upon various key areas. Now let's go back a little bit on the trade side of it. So I'm having with me Mr. Sudeep Singh, and Mr. Sudeep Singh is highly experienced agri-commodity trader and a consultant with close to 25 years of boots on the ground experience in the Indian as well as global market, based in the heart of trading hub, which is Dubai. Sudeep specialized in physical trade of grain and oilseed, offering a reality check that often contradicts the high-level corporate reports. He's an expert in mandi-level dynamics, prior execution, and micro-level risk that define a trader's success or failure. Sudeep's expertise is sought after for understanding the unlucky side of the trade, where the policy shift or logistic failure can wipe out a year's profit. Welcome, Sudeep. It's a pleasure to have you, sir. Sir, you're on
really
mute.
Thankful. Thankful for inviting me to such a great platform, and I'll try to give some insight about the part of trade which actually worries all of us, especially when we are talking about commodities.
No, surely, sir, we wanted a multiple type of expertise and to have all viewpoints taken care of. That would give our audience a little bit better understanding of how the things are. So we would like to understand based on your you've seen decades of soya cycle. Why do you call it unlucky beans? Because that is what you've been calling it. Is it because that the Indian trader is always caught between the global parity and local MSP interventions? Is that the problem?
No, I believe soybean is one commodity which everybody understands, and probably that is what makes it feasible for everyone, right from the farmer to the top of trader or an MNC. So say, for example, if farmer doesn't understand anything, what he will do in MP or Maharashtra is that he will sow soybean, because that's a crop which can take a little bit of, uncanny weather, and at the same time, still the yields will be on a moderate side. From the trader's perspective or from an MNC perspective or from a crusher perspective, the volatility is such that it keeps people interested. We have seen levels of 100,000 rupees in INR terms a few years back. But at the same time, for the last 3-4 years, the things are not so good, primarily because of the SND, also because of the maize thing which has happened in recent past. And then there are a lot of speculative activities. But at the same time, what I believe is that whether you call it unlucky or lucky, but at the end of the day, it's a commodity which everybody is interested in. But taking position in soybean is actually very difficult to assess because of the parameters, because of the factors which can affect it. If Indian SND goes a little wayward, we always have that probability that, meal import can be allowed, or poultry may start increasing the maize composition to its feed, which kind of, always restricts the price. But at the same time, it is such a necessity that it cannot be ignored, owing to which if the exports are very high, like it happened in the year when we reached the 100,000 levels, that, we exported around 22.2 million metric ton of meal to outside India. So that kind of things also, increases the probability to go up. So this is why the confusion exists. Taking a bet over it has always resulted, against going against the normal phase of market. And whenever a trader has tried to be kind of taking a position or making a views about it, probably it has gone not on its way, especially in the last 2 years. So probably that is one aspect of it which makes it unlucky.
Perfect. So Sudeep, actually, being someone specifically on the ground, when you are on ground and when you have to see the signals, right? All the traders which are working extensively on ground, they don't have this, I would say, visibility of all the great reports, the global parameters. They have to take call on a day-to-day basis. So how do a mid-sized trader, take those calls, when you are on the shop floor trying to do the trade on a day-to-day basis? Right? What are the signals do you see the trader should be looking at in current volatile markets?
So till a few years back, one of the best indicator for any soybean trader was to open ncdx.com. It used to give a lot of insight, especially in terms of the prices which existed. There was a transparency. The markets were, tied up to Indore. But right now, there is no clear-cut parameter. But at the same time, still, say for me, what is most critical is that how you look at CBOT. But if you see the behavior of CBOT in the last 20 trading days, what has happened is that it has, from 1130 levels, it has now reached to 1050, typically forming a head and shoulder pattern over the last few days. And now it is consistent at 1060 levels in CBOT. If you see the similar trend in case of, say, imported beans or the local markets were ranging in the range of 44, 45, 46,000. Today it is at the range of around 52,000. So what has happened is that CBOT has gone down by around 7-8%, while Indian markets have gone up by 15%. Now, there is no natural correlation which can exist in between CBOT and the Indian bean prices. And the major reason for that is that there is something called non-GMO which exists in India, while CBOT is tied to its GMO parameters. Now, taking that into context, how our global data or dynamics affects us is because of the fact that there is always an export possibility which happens. So say, for example, if globally the prices are going up, Europe is always a destination for India, especially for few players. Then Iran is something which Indian players look at. Southeast Asia limited, but yes, that also exists. But more in terms of the edibles market which exists in globally. And still Southeast Asia, primarily Taiwan, Japan, even South Korea, they rely on us for their edibles. And that is correlated with the global soy prices. So if you have to see the data, one of the easiest thing which used to happen and doesn't exist now was NCDX, which kind of used to give a very live type of prices. And the best part of NCDX was that, deliveries were mandated. Sorry, not mandated, deliveries. I mean, it was say a seller option. So if I have sold NCDX, I have a right to deliver, which kind of made the contract very, manipulations were not so easy on those contracts because deliveries were mandated. Deliveries were seller option. So currently, if I have to see, I have to rely more on Indian data points, which is a mix of reports which we get from various broker houses. Also, I personally have got a tracker which kind of takes care of last 8, 10, 12 years of data in terms of what are the arrivals, how are the major plants of say Dhulia or Indore or Neemuch or Ratlam or Rajasthan are behaving. So those are the things we look at. But honestly speaking, right now, it's more blind rather than having transparency because of lack of any credible source of information on a live basis.
Right. So, Sudeep, one more question, when you deal on a day-to-day basis, specifically on the availability, arrivals, demand and supply numbers, do you see that the mandi arrival numbers actually are making sense? Because what you see typically egg market and all that, those numbers are again you have to take it with a pinch of salt.
Then my simple point is that if Agmark, or I don't want to take a name, but if any data is correct, then none of the data kindly at the end of the year adds up to say 8 or 9 million metric ton of crop. And these are primarily traded in the mandis of MP, Maharashtra and Rajasthan, which has got a good mandi law. Had it been say Bihar or UP or not even UP, say Bihar, Jharkhand, Odisha, Northeast, where the mandis are not that great, or in fact in Bihar there is no APMC. So then where the crop is, ultimately, if these data are correct, right now somebody says that there is 3.5 lakh bag arrivals in India. Okay, so if it is only 3.5 lakh bags, then where the bean is? At the end of the day, then either this data is correct, or what the data which SOPA gives, or which Indian government gives, or which any state government gives on the total acreages is correct. Because ultimately these two are not matching. So that's the biggest challenge. So instead of that, I mean, obviously it gives an indication because, there is a trend. So what was happening in November that say 8 to 10 lakh bags of arrival was there. In December, it became to 6 to 7. But currently, it is around 3.54 lakh bags per day. So it is a clear indication that, despite the fact that there is Bhavantar in MP, other arrivals are slowing down. And that is only possible when farmers are not having crop. So it's obviously an indicator, a leading indicator. But is it exactly like that? I will always take it with a pinch of salt.
Fair enough. Now, last question to you, as a grassroots level trader, right? Who's directly on ground. What is the reality check? How do you ascertain the price points? Also, how do you ascertain the quality? Because we have also seen of late the quality defaults happening and those challenges also when we do the aggregation. So on the quality as well as the price part of it. How was someone who is on the grassroots level on the trading desk, is taking care of those issues?
So Deepakji, I will just tell one thing that, being a trader is a very calculative job, but at the same time, it is not a job of a speculator. So what a trader does is that he buys and sells and makes money in between, right? So if there is a parity of making money in between, either because of the arbitrages which exist, either in the form of, say, quality, or in the form of timing, or in the form of geography. So these are the 3-4 arbitrages which always existed. And that is the only reason why anybody will trade. So coming back to that point, being a trader, at the end of the day, what matters is that whatever you are buying for someone, is it giving you some money? So that is the calculation one need to do. Coming on the quality front, look, buying in mandi is always a challenge. That's a typical role which somebody needs to do, and at the same time ensure that whatever quality he is buying, at the end of the day, he is able to supply a similar quality or a demanded quality to any crusher. But it's a risk which is inherent to the part of this game, and people play with that risk, knowing what the risks are, and they define their parameters accordingly. So that's how it happens. But if you're talking exactly about quality risk, I mean, doing domestic is still easy. We are importing seeds from Africa. We are importing seeds from part of the world where, I don't even know who the actual seller is. I have not even seen that market. And still we are paying before the material is arriving in India, assuming that quality will be correct. So that's probably an inherent part of the game which we are playing in. And it's more a trust issue which happens between two parties. And at the end of the day, this particular part of the job requires a lot of relationship, and that is where it matters most. That you are working with people whom you are working with people whom you can trust, and at the end of the day, they are not doing the bad things with you.
Thanks a lot, Sudeep. Thanks a lot for views from the ground. I think that was very important. We had a lot of discussion about policy and corporate work and all that. And someone who is giving you the grassroots level challenges is always a pleasure. Thanks a lot. So now with that,
Thank you, Deepak ji. Thanks a lot.
Yeah. So now with that, we'll go to our next speaker, and it's always a privilege to have Mr. Amrendra Mishra. So Mr. Mishra, he leads the Indian operation for ADN, a global powerhouse in human and animal nutrition, with a career spanning of multiple decades in international trade and processing. He oversees ADM's strategic footprint in Indian protein and oil complex. He has been instrumental in forming partnerships such as the recent MOU, which you must have read in a lot of newspapers, with Bayer in implementing sustainable crop protection models for soya farmer. I believe that corporate working with the small and marginal farmers and their well-being is very important, and it's one of a very extremely exciting initiative which I would love to follow. His expertise lies in global processing economics, understanding how global crush spreads impact regional procurement and how multinational supply chains can drive local farm gate productivity. Hi, Amrendra. Thanks a lot for joining, sir.
Hello, Deepak ji. Thanks a lot. And first of all, thanks a lot for the introduction. And also, I'm honored to be part on this program and the initiative which you have taken.
No, my pleasure. So in fact, we had a very interesting session. We started from global trade in Dubai, then moved to policy with, we are having a very eminent person who worked closely with government, being the part of the PM's committee on MSP. We have Sanjeev Asthana ji. So we had a pretty decent time, and then actually the grassroots level trader, because I wanted the diverse viewpoints coming on. And now we are having you as a last speaker who happens to be a part of one of the largest companies in the world when it comes to agricultural commodities. ABCs are always respected and seen with a lot of envy. And everybody, all the trading companies aspire to become ABCs of the world. Now, with that, I will go to the first question to you, sir. So when we see that, what is required, in India, if we really want to see the growth of soybean sector, this is a multi-million-dollar question. Everybody is trying to brainstorm, right? And this is also what we are trying to do today. How do we see that actually we can, become a large soybean sector when we compare to countries like US or Brazil? How we can arrive?
Yeah, Deepak ji. So I think, and that's a very important question that we continue to discuss and understand overall, especially from an Indian context where we are so much dependent on oil, and oil seeds is key priority on the government agenda. So one thing which I feel is that for any success, for any model to success, it has to be successful as an ecosystem. You cannot win in bits and pieces and aspire to solve the problem. So like what I have seen in my experience in the US, there is very a close collaboration that happens with the industry, with both the input side and the processor and agriculture universities, institutes, where they come together and formulate okay, what are the next level developments that are happening, what are the gaps which are happening at the farm level, and what type of innovation we need to do. And then there is and with that collaboration and the things which actually market needs and the farmer needs, the policy structure and the work is done in that direction. And that's why we see the solutions which are developed are more aligned and supportive for the need of both the market and the farmer. However, that type of approach I see a bit missing in India. We have certain parts of the government which are trying to work in certain direction, but then a lot of time the industry is not part of those initiatives. We have initiatives which are taken in bits and pieces in certain parts of the country, but then developing an ecosystem is missing. So I think the whole idea should be that how we, if we want to really develop this sector, if we want to really solve the problem in the oil seeds or specifically soybean, then it has to be a value chain approach. It has to take care of all the value chain partners in the segment, and each part of the value chain need to win. It has to be a win-win approach. It cannot be one with a zero-sum game approach, where someday it's the farmer who is winning, or someday it's the trader who is winning, or other day the processor is winning. Each one of us in the value chain needs to win, needs to get stronger, and that's how we can develop the whole oilseed segment and soybean segment. So that is one thing which I see missing in overall our structure in India. And then also creating the awareness which the agriculture economy, or say oil seeds, play in the part of overall agriculture system in India to the consumers. That is also very much important, which completely missing. A lot of consumers don't know that where does the oil which we use in our homes, where does it come from, like how much is imported. They have no clue. So I think at different levels the work needs to be done, which will help in ultimately strengthening the sector, and will improve the conditions for everyone.
No,
So
I to
that's what my
in fact, I would like, just pick up from lastly what you said, consumer awareness. And believe me, today's this WhatsApp game, right? Suddenly, like, a heart specialist who himself came, right, and gave a clarification. I've never said this thing, right? If you are eating palm oil, you will get a heart attack, right? And it was circulated
Yeah.
so many times, right? And suddenly we found that it went beyond, right? What that the person has to himself come and clarify it, but that was not carried up, right? Because already the damage wasn't done. See, no oil, I believe, is bad or good or great. Eventually, it's all have their own use and utilization, and its own merits. Now, coming to bigger question, because what interests me in discussion with you, because we had discussion, in fact, what you talked about, the government and the different arms of it. We were actually, I organized that round table, right, on PM IST. You were part of it.
Right.
We have seen
Yeah.
that,
Yeah.
how confusion can happen. But beyond that, actually, that is, we discuss on day out. I would love to understand from you this great initiative, because both the ADM and Bayer actually have a huge regard and huge friends in both of these companies. They are doing something very grassroots level for the farmers. We would like to understand a little bit more on that initiative, and what was the reason to do that? What was the thought behind it? What is the current status, and how we want to take it forward? And believe me, guys, this is not a promotional thing at all. Like, I'm not charging anything from any of my sponsors, right? But this is something, actually, being someone who has spent 10 days every month with the farmers, they touched me a lot, and we would love to know more about it, sir.
Sure, Deepak ji. So, just to give you some background, we started this partnership in 2022. So we completed the first phase of partnership in 2025. And when we started thinking about the discussion started in 2021 between the two teams. And then we were working in the similar area, like as you know, we work in Marathwada region of Maharashtra and the adjoining districts, and the Bayer team is also quite active in there. And then our people started, like we both of us were doing things for support of the farmers, but then both of our team has individual strengths. So then we decided that, okay, our we want to support the farmers of the region, we want to support the soybean cultivation. So why not, let's come together and pool in our strength So because Bayer is quite strong on the input side, where ADM, we have our strength on the market linkage side. So why don't we come together and basically support the farmer of the region? And that's how this idea was born. And then we formulated this partnership in 2022 with the goal of reaching to say 35,000 hectares in the next 3 years, and then during this time adding almost 20,000 farmers under the program. So we initiated that program in the 3 years. We were able to achieve our objectives, and the type of response what we received also made us to basically believe that we can actually do more, and hence we decided to renew this partnership. And now in the new partnership, which gets extended say for the next 3 years, we are looking for close to covering 200,000 hectares, and which will benefit 100,000 farmers and the FPOs of the region. So now, why do we plan to do this? First of all, because we see that the importance of soybean as overall in the oilseed segment in India, the importance of soybean for the local economy of that region is very important. And also, what we see is that, okay, how do we prepare the Indian oilseeds farmers or Indian soybean farmers uh, to be more resilient and also be future ready? Like, how are we positioning them for the new demand or the new expectation which the global markets may have from Indian farmers? So it's just expanding our horizons, looking beyond what we have domestic, and being able to like prepare our farmers that they are future ready for the exports as and when demand come. So under these program, what we are doing is we are training the farmers on responsible input management, in responsible nutrient management. That is like, okay, what is the amount of nutrient they need to put in their soil, what is the requirement of their soil, is how much water is needed, so that the farmers are able to optimize on that. Also, we are looking at the ways of preserving the biodiversity. We are looking at the ways that how we can increase the carbon content of the soil. Now you know, being on the field, like how important the soil fertility is there for the farmer, like how close soil is the fundamental where agriculture starts, and that is the necessity which every farmer need to have. So and we realize that in India we are losing soil fertility. So what can be done that we improve the soil condition for our farmers? And then how do we train them for managing their crop during the whole harvest stage? How do we train them for managing during the post harvest? We also involved other partners in terms of like spraying, is doing the spray using the drone. So how do we put the technology in this program? So it's all the whole purpose of this program is basically to take the farmers from what they are doing today to basically include more say technology in their day-to-day work, and to train them to become better in what they do, in terms of apply their knowledge in a better way what they already know, and also to position them as the supplier for the global markets, where the markets may need a lower carbon footprint product. So that's the objective of preparing the farmers under this partnership.
No, I totally appreciate the great work you are doing. In fact, Mohan Babu, who happens to be heading the South Asia for Bayer, is a good friend. And long back, we also did a on ground check of one of the initiative which they were doing, Better Life Farming Initiative. That is also one initiative with Bayer is doing extensively well. And this has been a great initiative. But now I dovetail, you talked about the soil fertility, and I think that has been always a big challenge in global South, not just India, in many of the countries where actually we use green revolution. And now, sorry to say that, but now we don't have soil, we have dirt, right? It is having hardly any organic carbon. It is hardly having any microbial life. So all those challenges are there. And this is where regenerative agriculture, while a lot of people see it as a buzzword, but I've seen that really impacting in Africa, in Europe. I myself have seen that after 3 years, 4 years, right? You see the farming in a very different I would say status, like, the productivity to, like, and even the care about the farmer themselves. When they start doing it, their love and affection toward their soil increase. So I always say that actually space, a lot of people talk about technology. So I think space is not a solution. First, we have to take care of the soil. I would like to understand your initiative around region agriculture, because that is also something. It is very close to, like, how ADM is moving. I'm saying that they're the farmer side of activities.
Sure, Deepak. So, and for that, before we talk about that, I'll just take two steps back in terms of looking at how do we see the market setup today, or where the new generation of the consumers are looking at. And I hope you agree that our new generation is much more aware of the carbon footprints or the environmental footprints which we are creating. And that's the need which is driving, which is forcing or driving the food companies to relook at their supply chains, to ensure that we have a resilient food system, but also how do we have less carbon footprints in each of the value chain component do we have. That is the
So
future of the.
Amrendra, I'll just add one thing here. You talk about new generation. So my son is doing his graduation in artificial intelligence and data science, and he'll be surprised if I ask him to book a
Uh-huh.
ticket, airline ticket, right? I'll always end up getting the
Yeah.
costliest ticket, and I will ask him. Then he'll tell me actually which aircraft he used and actually what is a carbon footprint, right? So I'm very happy
Right.
that this new generation who can afford, they are looking about carbon very closely, and that's a good sign. So please, I just wanted to add, please carry on.
Absolutely, and that's the basis. Like, at the end of the day, whatever changes have come in, it's being driven by the consumers. So consumers starts asking, okay, I need less sugar in my food, or I less I want less calories or less sodium or whatever. So this is again, as you mentioned, about your son, the Gen Zs and millennials. They are looking for reducing their carbon footprints on whatever they do, and they are very particular about also getting an understanding of the food systems, and then food supply chain, and are we like supporting the environment or harming the environment. So all this is like ties back to, okay, where the food comes from, and that's where the role ADM plays, where we work in the middle of, we connect the farmers to our customers who are ultimately taking the produce to the consumers. So our objective with the regen agriculture is that it starts with the soil, and as I mentioned, that soil is very close to the farmer's heart. And every farmer which I have met or seen, they want to protect or enhance the quality and the value of their soil and the land. That is very critical. So what we do in our regenerative agriculture program is basically five very basic things. I mean, not a big tech thing like that, but five basic thing in terms of, let's minimize the disturbance on the soil. Let's ensure that we have the biodiversity present around the crop. Let's limit the tillage. What happens in the soil? Let's maintain the living roots in the soil, which creates the which maintain the soil fertility and maintain the organic nature of the soil. Let's have the cover crops. Let's not keep the soil bare, which can take the top layer off and hence affect the soil. And also, let's be responsible in terms of our input management. So all these things put together in a basic package of practice is what regenerative agriculture is all about. And then our with our reach in terms of our origination network across the world and the work with the farmers, we are able to pass on those tools, those processes, and incentives to our farmers, which help us in terms of which help them to basically produce seed, or produce their crop the way the new food system needs. So that is what the regenerative agriculture is all about. Over the last few years, ADM has made significant progress in terms of taking our regenerative agriculture to the next level. By 2024, we completed almost 5 million acres, worldwide acres, under regen agriculture, and we continue to make progress in that. And similar initiative, what you see in India, we continue with our regenerative agriculture practices. So So
No,
that's how it works.
see, simple is beautiful, right? So
Yeah.
you have not put too much of the tech part of it, where actually people are going overboard on tech. In fact, you'll be surprised. I am part of the Maharashtra government's AI initiative in agriculture, as an advisor, as a mentor to some of the work they are doing. And there also, I always tell them, try to make it simple. Don't intimidate farmer talking about blockchain, machine learning, and all that.
Absolutely.
He has no interest in that. Tell him that actually soil would be better. Tell him that his yield would be better, his produce would be better, and he might end up getting better realization rather than actually getting into so much of jargons. But again, that's a separate, because now everybody wants pitch decks which talk about technologies, which becomes very difficult for anybody to understand. And then you have to Google what this guy is talking about. But that's fine. Now, coming to with the last question to you. How do you see the protein sector growth in India? Because we are a protein deficient country, and all the protein can definitely not just come from pulses, right? And at the same time, we are also seeing challenges in our poultry industry, in aqua industry, where the cost of feed is becoming a challenge for them. How do you see the overall protein industry in India, and what can be done to ensure that it is more resilient?
Yeah, sure. So I think I mean, overall, the way I see is I'm quite optimistic about the protein growth in India. If you read any report in terms of overall protein market growth, or even just the plant protein market growth, I mean, you can look at the different values, but then all the reports agree in terms of the growth rates. So growth rates are anyways in the uh, double digits to early teens, and that tells you the explosive nature of the protein growth that we are witnessing, and also the amount of venture capitalist and the private equity money that's flowing into the protein market is simply amazing. So I think overall the protein growth story in India is very evident. It's booming, and I think especially if I look at soya as a crop, as we know that it's a protein crop, and it's very affordable. The soya, the texturized soya protein or soya chunks, what we call in India. I mean, the value per gram of protein that they offer for our vegetarian diet is simply amazing. It's an amazing product. And it's available throughout the season, and I think with our soybean production, with non-GMO soybean production, it also gives an opportunity to participate in global market with products like soya protein concentrate or soya protein isolates, which can be used in the high-end beverage applications. Our growth in the poultry has been steady, but then it has not grown to the extent what it should be, and that has been because of the high cost of the raw material at times. I think the important thing is realizing that we are a protein deficit country, as you rightly said. We need to have a sense of urgency increasing the yield of soybean, and that can only come with the right technology and with the right variety of seed. I mean, whatever the process the government wants to use it, whatever the technology, but then we need to grow. We need to have more crop per acre. I mean, that's as simple as that. That is the only solution which can help us to provide affordable protein and nutrition to our people in India. That's how
No,
I
I
see it.
totally No, I totally agree with you. As a protein deficient country, and soybean, in fact, is a super crop. Unfortunately, it has not been given that, I would say, the pedestal it should be having. And in fact, there was a time when a lot of India people, they had this soya nuggets being part of their daily
Yes.
life, right? But now slowly that has also disappeared. So I think it is again a time to look at soya. It is not just about the consumer and the protein sufficiency or secure nutritional security. It is also about helping our farmers, because I think soya farmer need the most, I would say, strong support from all the stakeholders. And we at HnyB, we are also thinking of starting a campaign, actually, just like we had a lot of campaign about, on eggs, on milk, right? It's a time actually, we come out with a campaign on soya, And I assure you, like, at this platform that we will be coming in next 15, 20 days, a campaign on soya. And it is not just about like, protecting farmer. It is also about ensuring our good health and being, I would say, predominantly vegetarian society, right? I think we need cheap protein and soya can give that. With that, I would like to thank you, Amrendra. And I would also like to thank all my participants who have graced this event and our audience, which has been there supporting us. This was our 4th session as a part of Commodity Week. And tomorrow, again, we'll be joining you and we'll be talking about pulses. With that, I take your leave and thanks a lot. Again, take care. Have a good day. Goodbye.
Thank you, Deepak ji. Thanks a lot. Thank you, everyone.